Good call.
Just waiting for Jim and Joe to give me some good news. It's 8 o'clock. Where are you guys? Waiting for my good news. Get your fat ass online already.
Well, they say it's not the X's and the O's, it's the Jimmys and the Joes.
It was a legitimate call since it was pass interference. I don't care what anybody says. That was pass interference, offensive interference. Yeah.
Get ready for 2 hours of hard-hitting football talk from two men in the know. It's Football in the Know with Jim Joe.
And you can win under pressure when it's there. You call runs when you're not supposed to, and Dak Prescott is throwing it in the dirt.
You know, I'm convinced that Jameis Winston is going to have an ESPN special 30 for 30.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome once again to another episode of Football in the Know. I am Jim McPhee, and alongside of me is Mr. Joe DeCapita.
What's going on, Noodles? Welcome back for another edition of Football in the Know Show. And it is it's fantasy week, right?
It is, yeah.
So we're going to get into some fantasy. We're going to discuss some options with some players. We're going to give you my top 10 for quarterbacks, receivers, and running backs for this upcoming drafts. I know some of you have probably already drafted. We discussed this many times beforehand and said, well, you should probably wait until as close as possible to the season to do so that way you don't run into injury problems that you might have drafted. Some people out there might have drafted David Montgomery. Yeah, the starting Chicago Bear running back who, mind you, was looking like he was going to be a stud for this year for whoever drafted him. And now if you've already done and had your draft and you did select none other than David Montgomery, he was carted off the field yesterday or today. And now you might be hurting a little bit at running back if you did so, but we're here to help you guys. Make sure you go ahead and comment, ask us questions about fantasy, about your current football team that coming into the season, what we think. Also, feel free to share your opinions as we go through the show as well. If you're new to the show, welcome aboard. Make sure you become a know-it-all by either going to YouTube or Facebook. Search us up as Football on the Know Show. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Become a know-it-all, member of the know-it-all squad here on Facebook. You can also follow us for just the news portions on Twitter at FB_know.
I did a great tweet today about, I think Will Compton had joined, who was it? I can't remember, but he just joined the team again. He's back in the house, and I posted a meme there with it and was talking to Field Yates about it. It was pretty interesting. It was great stuff. So, yeah, definitely follow us on Twitter. Pleasure having you guys on here. Again, we are talking some fantasy football. Like Joe and I always say, we always wait till like the week before. You know, that's why this is called Fantasy Week, because a lot of times you guys
the draft is coming up this weekend.
Come up this week here. They get going, get ready a week or two ahead of time. Yeah, see, it's getting very exciting. A lot of people getting tuned in and ready to go. So we're going to hit you up with Joe comes up with his top 10 lists every season here before we get started for fantasy football. Let us know if you guys agree. We're going to roll through the top 10 quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers. So let's hit them off here with Joe's first list. And we're going to hit up with the what are we going to do? Let's go to quarterbacks here. Top 10, Joe's top 10 fantasy quarterbacks here. Let's take a look at it. Right now, he's got Lamar Jackson here at number 1. I think a lot of people agree with that.
Yep.
Russell Wilson here at number 2. That's a really nice pick here. Patrick Mahomes, number 3. Drew Brees still hanging in there at number 4. Dak Prescott, number 5. Tom Brady, 6th. Deshaun Watson, 7th. Kyler Murray here jumps in the top 10 and at 8th. Matt Ryan at 9 and Josh Allen at 10. Now, Joe, what did you determine when you came up with this list here?
So really what it was about is predominantly – and it's different because I did this more catered to my point system that I utilize in my league. And and what I project them to be this year, because let's face it, it's not just based off of what they accomplished last season. It's also what they can do better for the upcoming season and where we think they might end up. So as far as Lamar Jackson goes, no question at all. I mean, the number one guy, yes, the Ravens do run a lot, but they look for this upcoming season, they have also discussed the opportunity where they can probably become a little bit more balanced this season. We know them as a heavy running team. They are still going to be that running team. However, it looks like they're going to aim to be a little bit more balanced, pass a little bit more often to alleviate some of the pressure that Lamar may get in the pocket, get it out of his hands quickly. As far as Russell Wilson, now, a lot of people might have a huge question mark about that, as having him as number 2, but let's face it, Russell Wilson has been the most consistent fantasy quarterback in the past 5 years. It's hard to knock him, and how I project him for this upcoming season, I think he's going to do better than Mahomes. I feel like he's going to be a little bit more balanced. He's got plenty of weapons now at his disposal with DK Metcalf. Tyler Lockett comes back yet again healthy. That is a huge thing for him, and look for him to, and look at how mobile he is. He's able to eat up yards and get you fantasy points that way. Patrick Mahomes, the reason why I have him in third is quite simply, yes, he has a high, profiled offense. They're very powerful in the air. They like to throw the football. Andy Reid's offense does throw a lot, so you would expect Mahomes to be up there in that discussion with Lamar Jackson for me. But I feel like he's had moments here and there last season where it didn't show me elite status for a quarterback. Yes, he did a great job with fantasy points and getting that. I still think he's going to be a very solid quarterback. I just don't think he's going to be at the elite tier next to Lamar. Probably going to end up finishing in the 380 range in fantasy points.
We have Cynthia Blair in the house with us tonight, watching from York, Maine with friends.
Wow, look at that.
Boom. Hitting it up
Welcome
here.
to the show.
Is in the house.
York,
Maine. Mainers in the house. I love it. I love to see everybody from all different parts of the United States here joining with us tonight. Joe, I'm going to agree with you here on your top 3 right here. Patrick Mahomes, again, 3 is nice because, again, if you look at Lamar Jackson and Russell Wilson, what type of players they are, it fits fantasy nicely because not only do they throw the ball, because that's what they are as quarterbacks, and that's how you gauge some of their points, but you get bonus points for rushing. And these guys are a major rushing attack here in their own right with their teams and get the running game as well. Yeah, so you're just stacking up some of those bonus points.
It's more Lamar than it is Russell. Russell usually just runs if he has to.
Yes.
Whereas Lamar, I feel like he in the past season, I'll say, he ran a little too often when he probably could have dumped it off, probably could have thrown it, to move the chain, so to speak. But, hey, it all worked in his favor. He racked up a ton of yards, got plenty of touchdowns, and that's why he's at the number 1 spot. Drew Brees, a lot of people, I saw this across the board, a lot of people in their top 10 lists did not have Drew Brees even in it.
And a lot of people think he's washed up.
And a lot of people do think that he's declining. They think that he's not going to be as good because they said, hey, well, last year he didn't really do much. Well, if you really pay attention to what Drew Brees did last year, he was injured for almost half the season. So, and for him to be injured and to be even in the top, 15-ish, top 20 quarterback in fantasy and miss almost half the season, I think he's going to have a huge breakout season this year. This year could be his final year. He's going to go out with a huge bang, I believe, and that's why he makes that 4th spot for me. I especially when you look at Emmanuel Sanders is there now. They added it with the Saints offense to combine him with Michael Thomas, the best receiver in the league right now. I think that's a pretty scary duo. So I definitely feel with Alvin Kamara in the backfield and so forth, I feel like they're going to become even more of a dangerous offense than before. Drew Brees makes the 4th spot.
Take a look at your list. And Dak Prescott in the NFL.com rankings, it said that he had finished, 2nd or 3rd, I think, in the fantasy points altogether for quarterbacks, was it?
And I want everybody to know this, too, is remember, I'm generating this list based on my point system, which is, pretty much the average point system. For quarterbacks, it's every 25 yard you get a point.
Now, is it standard league or is it PPR?
No, this is PPR.
Okay.
But it doesn't really, with PPR, it doesn't matter what quarterback.
No, it doesn't matter what quarterbacks. So, I'm just gauging, so when we talk further about some of the other ones as we go.
So it's, it's at the average point system that you would utilize anyway. But yes, being PPR doesn't really necessarily, go up for quarterbacks, and it doesn't really dictate any kind of thing. But Dak Prescott, to me, I don't like him really as a franchise quarterback, as a starting quarterback for the Cowboys. He does good. Don't get me wrong. He's a good quarterback. But in fantasy, though, he is – you could make the argument that he is in the elite status. I mean, as far as last season, according to my records, Dak Prescott was second to Lamar Jackson, believe it or not, in fantasy. He really kind of racked up a lot of yardage. He had about 277 yards rushing, which isn't a lot for a quarterback, but every little bit counts. For him to have 30 touchdowns, only 11 interceptions, and to get eclipsed that 400 point mark is huge for quarterbacks. So Dak Prescott, watch out for him this year, I think. And you got to remember too, they had Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper last season. Now they're going to have those two plus their draft pick and their rookie that everyone is expecting in CeeDee Lamb to make an impact. And we still don't know how they're going to utilize all these receivers. I definitely expect CeeDee Lamb to be more of a slot guy, so he could rack up in catches. Maybe not a ton in touchdowns, but who knows? I mean, the guy with having three good receivers, we'll see how it all pans out in the end.
Now here you have Tom Brady at 6, and is in part of that some of the wide receivers now he has on the Tampa Bay roster here? That what
it absolutely has to be. I mean, when you got two of the best receivers that he's ever thrown to, Chris Godwin definitely made splashed out into the scene last season, really made a name for himself. He's going to be the number 2, or also fit into that slot role. He's going to get a lot of catches from Tom Brady. So if you're in a PPR, to me, Chris Godwin is the receiver that you want to grab out of Tampa instead of Mike Evans. I still think Mike Evans is going to have a top 15 type season. Where that's going to end up in the end, we have to see how it all shakes out in terms of reps and who's going to get the ball, who's going to be the featured guy. But the only thing on Tom, and this is the reason why he didn't make my top 5, is yes, he's got great weapons. Plus, you got the tight ends. You got Rob Gronkowski returning back with him. You got O.J. Howard. You also got Cameron Brate. I mean, that's a 3-headed monster at the tight end position. That it's like you could just send out Godwin, Evans, and 2 tight ends. You know what I mean, all the time, and be successful with that. So he's got a ton of weapons. That's great. Offensive line, however, it's the weakest he's ever had. So he basically traded a strength for a weakness, and that is going to play a part in how good Brady plays on the football field. And not to mention a little bit different of an offense. So with all that, he ends up in my number 6 spot because of the uncertainty of how well he's going to play in the new offense / with a weaker offensive line, and really no answer at running back. So it's the first time in his career that, yes, he's got phenomenal receiving talent, but everything else around him is kind of subpar.
And I've been an owner of Tom Brady before, and he has worked well for me at times. But again, for me in fantasy, he had some of those games where it just was like a 15-point game or something like that. Nothing major, spectacular, just because of the way the Patriots were designed into run the ball heavy sometimes, or just be a game manager at times, not exactly airing it out there. But the one positive is that usually with the Tom Brady, when he was with the Patriots, they dished the ball so many times out. So if somebody had a Julian Edelman against me or something like that, or something, or a different wide receiver, it really didn't hurt me as much as sometimes how people combat your quarterback with their top target. It doesn't hurt so much because he can spread the ball around. Like you said, if somebody has Mike Evans, who knows? It might be a day when Chris Godwin gets most of the touches there too. So it'll be tough for them.
That's the thing that I'm alluding to, is because Chris Godwin, he's going to fit into that system that Edelman was him and Edelman, when Tom Brady was in New England, it was just Edelman pretty much. That's all you really saw. Edelman got a ton of catches all the time, and turned into yards, and then once in a while would score a touchdown, but those catches in a PPR league are deadly. So Godwin, I feel, is going to have more catches than Evans, and in turn might just very well outscore Evans altogether. Number 7, we have Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, in a lot of leagues, they're kind of having him in that top 5, like lower end 5, like fourth position or so. Deshaun Watson, I have a lot of question marks for him. Not in terms of talent. I think Watson is one of the better younger quarterbacks in this league, and he's just going to keep getting better every season. However, a major change has happened in Houston. There is no longer a DeAndre Hopkins receiver out there that he can just throw it up to and he's going to come down with it and you know it 100%. Deshaun Watson is now going to have to rely on guys like Will Fuller to remain healthy. Will Fuller's a really good receiver, but he just can't stay healthy year in and year out. So how long can he last for Deshaun Watson? Also, they got Brandon Cooks and Randall Cobb as your other two receivers along with Kenny Stills. Now, can the combination of those guys, can they make up for the production and outright huge playmaking ability of a Hopkins with Deshaun Watson? That's where I'm a little conflicted. I think Watson will still be a top 10 quarterback, but as far as elite status, I think he might take a little bit of a dip because of the talent that he has at receiver. And at number 8, surprise for many is Kyler Murray makes my top 10, and it's really simple. Kyler Murray, yes, he had his rookie season. He was voted Rookie of the Year. I think he had a average type of year for a rookie, and this in his second year with the same offense with DeAndre Hopkins now leaves Houston and goes to Arizona, teaming up with Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk, Andy Isabella. I mean, right there, they got a nice 4-way monster at receivers, and they are all three of them are dangerous in their own right. Andy Isabella's got that blazing speed. Christian Kirk is a great receiver all for everything, whether it be route running, catching. Not the fastest guy, but also a good receiver anyway. Hopkins, one of the best, comes to you, and why wouldn't you utilize all these guys? Larry Fitzgerald has been one of the most consistent guys despite his age, and I look for him to take another step with these younger guys to make this offense not only a little bit more prolific, but Kyler Murray also has a set of wheels. So he can get out of trouble. He can also run for yardage and get some touchdowns that way. We've seen it last year, flashes here and there. I look for Kyler Murray to take another big step forward, especially with all the weapons that he has at his disposal, and make a big impact. He'll be at the later part of the top 10.
I can see him even moving up a little further than 8th here, too. I mean, it all depends on once the season gets going, see how it goes. Are we going to get the Kyler Murray that we saw, the last couple of games of the season? You think he would because, again, all the additional weapons that he has. It's just more excitement for the rest of the season.
Yeah, the only biggest question mark for Kyler Murray now is because there's no preseason games. Yeah. You got nothing to really base anything off of. You got practices. You're playing against your buddies on the opposite side of the line. And, that's all well and good because that's the best you can do. But, I mean, with this unique offseason, I still feel Kyler Murray, this is a big jump for him. If he can get into the top 10 in fantasy, it's really going to open some eyes into the following season.
A nice, good steal if you get him later on. And then Matt Ryan's there, too. And Josh Allen, I think, is kind of interesting, too. I mean, I don't really see him as a big top fantasy guy, but I mean, I haven't played fantasy in a few years now. I mean, did he score very well last year? I know he did like to run and hurdle here and there. I mean, was that partially where he got a lot of fantasy points? Because Buffalo wasn't really known for putting up a lot of points on people either.
No, I mean,
a defensive team.
I mean, they were a great all-around team, except their offensive line didn't do too hot for Josh Allen. He did get banged up, missed a couple games, and in turn that kind of dipped down his score. Still had 320-ish fantasy points, which is really, really good for a quarterback. And that is on a season where a lot of people ridiculed him for his accuracy. A lot of people ridiculed him for holding on to the football or footwork and that sort of thing. I think he's going to polish that up this offseason. He's worked very hard. He also got a nice new shiny toy this season via trade, and that is Stephon Diggs joins the Buffalo Bills. I've heard all reports coming out of camp. I've heard that Josh Allen and Diggs have been connecting like they started the league together. The chemistry is there already in this unique time. And when you have other guys like Cole Beasley, who's still getting it done in the slot, and John Brown, who's going to be opposite Diggs, now for once they have a very well streamlined receiving core that they are going to take into this new season, with Josh Allen having now a little bit more experience, has improved on a lot of things in the offseason and last year. He's going to take that off to this year, and I feel like he's going to do extremely well in fantasy. Now, the other part of it, too, is his running ability. And that's really what kind of catapults him into the bottom of the top 10 for me, because he is a guy that is not shy to take off and run, not shy to go and get those 10, 15, 20 yards to get a touchdown with his set of wheels. So even though he's a little elusive when he runs, because he doesn't look fast. You look at the guy, and he's just like a giant quarterback.
Yeah.
But he can move. So I think with his mobility and with his new weapon with Diggs, I feel like he's going to just cross that threshold at the number 10 spot. And you mentioned Matt Ryan at 9. Matt Ryan has been one of the most consistent fantasy quarterbacks since he's been established the starter in Atlanta. I mean, he might get, banged on, and he might get, ridiculed about how, he throws interceptions in critical times and stuff like that. But that's reality. Like, this is fantasy football. As long as he puts the points up, he deserves to be there. So I got him in the lower part of my top 10 at 9. And some people might be surprised that Aaron Rodgers didn't make the list. And I have a little bit of a problem with Aaron Rodgers and his offense, really. It's more of his offense than Rodgers. Is last year we noticed he had lack of receiving threats. He had Devontae Adams, which is all well and good, one of the best receivers in the game. But after that, they had a lot of subpar receiving talent. The only one guy that kind of popped out later in the season was Allen Lazard. Look for him to start opposite Adams. I can't imagine anybody else starting over Lazard right now at this point, because Rodgers, to me, trusts Lazard. Lazard has earned Aaron's trust, and coming into the season, look for him to be more of that, not possession, but a high catch total might go towards Lazard, because people are going to just keep double teaming Adams and trying to prevent him from taking over a football game. But really, what sets Rodgers' offense apart from everybody else is the lack of health on the offensive line. And that's a problem, because we've seen Aaron Rodgers get banged up the last couple of years, 2-3 years. He's been banged up midway through the season, and he kind of has to grind it out through the rest of it and try to make something out of nothing. Green Bay did not this past offseason really do anything to help him acquire more receiving talent, and it worries me. Their starting tight end right now is penciled in as Mercedes Lewis, everybody. A tight end that is in his mid-30s. He's at the end of his rope. Is not the same dominating tight end that he was in his first couple of years in the league. And as far as I consider him just washed up at this point. So no real, no real guys to take over a game other than Adams. Lazard is like the next best target for him. And because of that, I feel like he might take a little dip. He might even just miss the top 10.
All right, well, there you go. There's Joe's top 10. To see if that pans out for you guys out there, too. Take a look at that. You guys agree or disagree? Let us know. Comment below. Everybody here on YouTube and also on Facebook and on Twitter, what we're streaming right now. So we appreciate you guys checking out with us tonight. We're going through our top 10 fantasy list. We just covered the quarterbacks. Now Joe's going to give us his top 10 fantasy running backs. Here we go. Let's look at the list here. It's Christian McCaffrey, of course, big surprise here at number 1. Then Saquon Barkley. I had a typo. I typed Saquon Barkley wrong there. But how did I do that, Joe? Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, Alvin Kamara, Austin Ekeler joins us here in the top 5. Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones, Dalvin Cook, Kenyon Drake, and Nick Chubb. I think there's a lot of debatable stuff, I think, in this list.
Bring it on.
It's pretty interesting here for me. Yeah. Christian McCaffrey, yes, I can see that number 1. You can't really debate that. A lot of people see Saquon coming back here and working well, especially with a revamped, we hope, offensive line here for the Giants. At least they can't get any worse than when they were probably last year. Zeke Elliott always sings tough, but again, as far as fantasy, he's more of a ground and pound, so much not as a receiving type of back. Alvin Kamara, we're hoping that they could get big numbers from him last season, and he failed to do so a bit there for them, being the lone back there. But now he has a little more help, so we'll see if that helps him altogether here. Derrick Henry, again, workhorse. Drops it down there. Aaron Jones, a real surprise for, I think, a lot of people here sneaking in there. A little silent hero, I think, amongst a Green Bay team to where you weren't sure what the identity was of the offense. It was all over the place. Dalvin Cook, that's the, I think, surprising one here, too, for me, just because he has that potential. Again, will he get injured again and just be like kind of a bust? He had a little bit of a break session. Like when he first came into the league, he looked really hot. Again, dude, out then he was gone. And then trying to battle back, not looking so hot, but it looks like he's maybe got back to that potential. So I think that's maybe a little bit of a scare, I think, for fantasy owners here with Dalvin Cook. But we shall see. High potential. I think he could be a top 8.
Dalvin Cook, the only reason why he's a little lower on my list is because of that injury factor. As far as a player, he would be he would be in the top 4.
That's
no
what I mean.
doubt.
If you looked at his yards per carry and everything, I mean, altogether, if you average that, he was lights out every time.
Yeah, I mean, he's a proven commodity. It's just the injury factor. That's why he dips down to 8 in my top 10. Saquon Barkley, listen, if Barkley didn't get banged up last year, you're looking at kind of Pro Bowl numbers for a running back. A guy who could simply been in that argument of maybe MVP of the league. Barkley had a tremendous season last year, but because he got injured and got a little bit banged up, he ended up kind of falling back a little bit. But Barkley, I feel like, is going to come back strong this year. The Giants have an improved offensive line, especially when they drafted Andrew Thomas. And now that who is it? The tackle for the Giants he just opted out for the season.
Nate Solder?
Yeah, Nate Solder. No longer, it's not going to be an open door on that end where he plays, where Daniel Jones has to fear for his life. They brought in a free agent to kind of lock down that side. So this team, and it's always been a weakness for them at the tackle spots, it looks like they improved that. So with that, we've seen what Barkley could do with a terrible offensive line. Now, if this offensive line has improved any little bit, I could just imagine that Barkley is going to kind of be hunting down a Christian McCaffrey to try to take his crown this season. I think he'll still come up short because McCaffrey is so dependent on in Carolina. But Barkley, nonetheless, will be a close second. I feel like he's going to do extremely well. He can catch out of the backfield. He can run the ball inside, outside, you name it, and block. So he's a complete running back. Watch out for Saquon Barkley this season. Ezekiel Elliott, there's really not a whole lot that you need to explain. Ezekiel Elliott has been one of the top premier fantasy running backs in fantasy, and he's going to probably end up being one of those top 3 guys yet again with the Dallas Cowboys team that now has inherited another weapon at the receiving core, and that might alleviate some of the pressure that Elliott might get for this upcoming season, making him top 3.
I think it'll be interesting to see how he fits along with that Mike McCarthy offense. I'm sure he's going to be a major part still. Yeah, because he is their best weapon, I'd say, that they have. It's usually been run off of him and then maybe play action pass and get some of the other guys together here. They do have the best weapons that they've had in a long time. It'll be interesting.
Well, Kellen Moore is still the offensive coordinator,
he's still working
and because Mike McCarthy was brought in as the head coach, I don't see too much changing in terms of their offensive style. I feel like Mike McCarthy coming in is going to want to put a few wrinkles in that playbook for specifically Dak Prescott to throw the football, because we know how Mike McCarthy loves to throw the football. But now that you have a complete offense, you have a star running back, and what looks like a pretty solid receiving core, you might want to be played a little bit more balanced than what Mike McCarthy's used to back in Green Bay. We've seen him always throw the football because he had Aaron Rodgers. Now you might want to go with your strength in Dallas and just run the ball with Ezekiel Elliott and mix in the plays like passing plays like they normally do. Number 4, we got Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara, I think, is going to have a huge break. Basically a comeback year is what I was trying to say. Alvin Kamara, he missed quite a few games actually last season, so that kind of really dipped down his total in terms of fantasy production, and he was just couldn't find his way to stay healthy down the stretch for that last season. Alvin Kamara, I feel like he's going to be still a huge impact for this offense with Drew Brees, with these other receiving options. I feel like he's going to come in. He's going to team up with Latavius Murray, kind of what like he used to do with Mark Ingram. He's going to be more involved in the passing game. He's going to be involved with the screens and the outside runs and off tackle runs. Alvin Kamara, I feel, is going to make a big comeback this season, because if he stays healthy, he's going to be up in that top 5 spot. Austin Ekeler at number 5. This might come as a surprise for some people, but to me, not really. I had Austin Ekeler last season in fantasy, and he ended up being a absolute dominant freak for the Chargers. Now, he didn't start right away, so he didn't have those like elite numbers, but his production was off the charts when he did get that starting job over Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon got banged up, couldn't make it. They were like, hey, we didn't miss a beat. In fact, Ekeler made them even better in the run game and pass game. So Ekeler scored a ton of points. He was in the top 5 range for my fantasy league with his catching ability and his running ability. Now, a lot of people have all the Chargers weapons like Keenan Allen and Ekeler. Now that he's the starter, they have them kind of a little bit dipped down in their ratings, but it's because they're expecting Phillip Rivers left, so they're just thinking that the offense isn't going to run well and those guys aren't going to get their dues. However, Tyrod Taylor, if he is the quarterback come week 1, he's adequate enough to get the football to an Ekeler. You know what I mean? To dump it off to him 5 yards or like a little screenplay to him or something like that. And Keenan Allen just gets open. He's one of the better receivers in this league. He runs phenomenal routes. He will get open, and Tyrod Taylor, I don't think will have any problem hitting him when he does.
Michael Guerrero is joining us with us tonight. He chimes in. Go Raiders. Good show, guys. There he is. Yeah, there he goes. Michael Guerrero in the house.
Appreciate you, brother.
One of our favorite know-it-alls.
Definitely. So there we go with number 5. Number 6, I got Derrick Henry. Now, Derrick Henry, the king in Tennessee, he looks to have an impactful year this year. Now, last season, it was almost like they kind of discovered that they had a running back in Derrick Henry. Early on, they didn't really run that much. Then as the season progressed, it looked like Derrick Henry kept getting more carries and more carries and more carries, which gave him more opportunities to do what? To literally run over people, run by people, and stiff arm them all the way for a touchdown. So Derrick Henry, very successful last season down the stretch. Look for him to make a big impact. Now that the Tennessee Titans finally get it, they finally realize that they have a really good running back in their midst. Why not use him? So Derrick Henry, he's going to get used a lot more, which in turn I feel like he's going to get easily in the top 10. He ends up on 6 on my list.
There you go. And it's Aaron Jones is right there here at 7-2. Again, like I said, it was kind of like a sneaky kind of player up in there. A lot of people don't pay attention to so much of those guys back there. We were talking about it a few years ago with him and Jamal Williams flexing back and forth, and Aaron Jones now has kind of stepped out of that and shown to be kind of that prominent backfield now.
Yeah, and the one thing for Aaron Jones is like 2 years ago, he was bitten by the injury bug, and that's what gave Jamal Williams his time to shine. He did very well with his reps that he got, but then when Aaron Jones came back, it seemed like then they started to go with kind of like a 50-50 split with them, trying to figure out really what they had in each running back. Last season, Aaron Jones just won the running back position right out from the offseason. Like, he was just more impressive. He could do everything they needed him to do and exploded on the football scene, so much so that Aaron Jones, literally in my league, ended up second in fantasy running backs. He scored so many points. He was right behind McCaffrey. And I say right behind him, but really it's a long distance. McCaffrey ended up having like 455 fantasy points in my league, and the second place back, which was Aaron Jones, had 300. So let that marinate for a second.
I will massacre you.
And that's what McCaffrey said to everybody in fantasy. So,
absolutely.
But Aaron Jones, a great running back to go out and obtain if you are able to in the middle of the first round, maybe even in the latter part of the first round if you're lucky to have him. He's going to do everything for Green Bay, and I there has been a lot of people that said, well, we're a little down on Aaron Jones this season. We don't think he's going to do as much. We think that the offense might gear a little bit more towards passing and less running. I don't see that happening. It's the same coaching staff, same offense, same really the same personnel. So I think that we're going to see kind of the same results. Aaron Jones is going to be heavily relied upon in the run game and the pass game.
My man.
Yep, and it's funny too. And if he does, a lot of people see it that way. Because some people that play fantasy, they don't watch football all the time. They just like to be in it for the gambling, things like that. If they don't see big names there, they can look right over them, and you might even see Aaron Jones slip a little bit too. I mean, that could be a nice value pick if he starts to slide a little bit in some of your guys' leads out there.
Absolutely. Number 8, we already talked about Dalvin Cook, so we're going to skip over. We're going to go to number 9.
Kenyon Drake over here at number 9 here. Here's your top 10 running backs here for fantasy. If you guys agree, let us know, if you like it too. If some guys you like, you don't, let us know here. Comment below in the comment section and also here on Facebook.
Yeah, so number 9, we have Kenyon Drake with Arizona Cardinals. He kind of came on late last season. He missed, I think, 2 games last year, but he wasn't really prevalent as a starter until the latter part of the season when Chase Edmonds kind of got his shot in the limelight early on in the season, and David Johnson, we know he was injured before the season really started. So it got down to like halfway point in the season until he really started to become the starter. And once that happened, it seemed like there was life. You know what I mean? Like he just got more life. Coming from the Miami Dolphins in a trade, ends up with Arizona, and they just utilized him later in the season with like literally every play. Like he earned the job. He could catch out of the backfield. He can run in and outside the tackles, and he just performed extremely well. Fit really well into this scheme. It was almost like the scheme was built for a guy like Kenyon Drake, and he really let that be known. And because of that, I just see, like I mentioned before, Kyler Murray I think is going to perform better with all these weapons that he has. And now Kenyon Drake, when you put DeAndre Hopkins on the football field, teams take notice, and they are not going to be pressuring the running game as much as they might have last season because they're worried about Hopkins and Larry, you know what I mean, and a couple of the youngsters. So I feel like that's going to help Kenyon Drake even more to become more of a stud. He's going to end up probably in the bottom, somewhere in the bottom of the top 10.
Absolutely. It's a nice little wild card to have out there with you because again, you see those deep threats or the threats at wide receiver that you have here, and you've got Kenyon Drake who fits nicely along with that offense here. Found a nice home here with Arizona after leaving Miami. All right, and Nick Chubb also here you have here rounding your top 10 here for your fantasy running backs here. Again, like you like to say, I'm going to steal a term from you. I don't know where you heard it first, though, but bull in the china closet. I like that one.
You like it?
I like Nick Chubb here. Dude, he's got the quickness. He's got the build. A lot about him. It gets overlooked even, too, I think, just because he plays for Cleveland. But he's a big part of that offense. And the Cleveland Browns this year, he's going to be a huge part with the new offense that they have coming in here to move forward here. Despite all of the wide receivers that they have here, wide receiver talent, you're going to see them to try to utilize the running game here with Nick Chubb.
Yeah, and that's what I really see for the Cleveland Browns. I definitely think that their offense as a whole is going to be playing better and more efficiently. The only question that I see is the offensive playbook is going to be a little bit different. It's not going to be as run heavy, I don't suspect. So as much as everybody was all hopped up on Nick Chubb coming in, you would also don't forget Kareem Hunt is in the same backfield. So we saw last year Kareem Hunt, even though they were splitting carries, it seemed like both of them were so impressive. You could take both of them and start them both for your fantasy. Every week, both of them were getting starter-like fantasy numbers. So this year is a little bit different because the offense is changing a little bit. That's why Nick Chubb is a little bit lower on my list than I would have put him. I feel like with Kareem Hunt there, also with Chubb, kind of splitting carries, kind of splitting up reps for week-to-week games, and with the different offense. I just don't know what to expect from this offense. I don't think they're going to run as heavy, and because of that, that's the only reason why I see Nick Chubb kind of sliding a little bit. And just so everybody knows, the 8th to 10th spot could change abruptly because there are other running backs that you could make the debate for to be in the lower end of the top 10. Guys like Josh Jacobs for the Raiders, we know that he kind of missed like 3 to 4 games at the end of the season, but still had like 1,200 rushing yards.
That's true.
Guys like that, and just so you know, it's really preference when you get down to that lower, the second tier, almost third tier, if you will. When it comes to running backs or even receivers, it's really preference. Just on your own judgment, who do you think is going to have more of a successful season?
Mm-hmm. And I totally even forgot about that too, because again, there's a lot of fantasy projections out for Josh Jacobs. I mean, is he going to be in this
not
top
to
10
mention,
here?
Think about Mark Ingram. Mm-hmm. Like, I know that they did draft a rookie like J.K. Dobbins, who I absolutely love, and he is going to carry the torch on when Ingram leaves from the Ravens. But you got to wonder that, too, with a rookie running back with Mark Ingram there. Like, is that going to cut into his carries this year? Is that going to make him dip a little farther, even though he is still primed to make a big have a big game.
So here you go. Here's your top 10 fantasy running backs.
Real quick.
Again. Sure.
Joe Mixon. Another guy that a lot of people kind of push up in the top 10. Now, talent-wise, I would completely agree with that. However, you have a rookie quarterback taking over for your offense, and that kind of scares me because rookie quarterbacks usually lead to mistakes being made and no respect given to those quarterbacks from other defenses. Defenses are going to load the box when they play Cincinnati. You think of the Steelers games and when the Ravens come to town against the Bengals. They're not going to be afraid of Joe Burrow. Even as much accolades as you hear out of camp in Cincinnati saying, oh, he's making all these great throws. When the game is really being played, week 1, his eyes might be a little bit wider. He may make a few mistakes, and because of that, Joe Mixon, I feel, is going to be he's going to be hammered like Le'Veon Bell was last season, where nobody's worried about you passing the ball on them. They're going to come up and make sure they stuff the run. That's also a reason why Mixon didn't make my top 10.
And Mixon even nursing an injury right now. Let's see what happens when he starts to come back to play, to practice. So I'm sure they're going to take that very cautiously. I don't think they want to hurry him back in. I mean, even though they want to try and get him reps. But you know how injuries are happening this season. You know, with everything we knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, I know.
But we'll talk about that in a little bit because are covering the AFC and NFC North divisions this week with our previews and our picks. So you guys stick tight for that. Hold tight for that. And so we're doing some fantasy talk right now. Joe already covered his top 10 quarterbacks. If you didn't check that, check the video a little bit later, and you can check it out. Check out his quarterback list. We just covered the running backs, and now we'll get into the fantasy wide receivers here. And you've got Michael Thomas here at number 1.
Surprise.
Again, that's not really a big surprise either here. Julio Jones and Devontae Adams here in number 2 and 3. Chris Godwin jumps in there too. Wow, you said you were really high on Chris Godwin, and you bring him right up there into the top 4 spot. Notice, like you said, you don't see Mike Evans here. DeAndre Hopkins is rounds at the top 5. Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans there pops up. Cooper Kupp, Allen Robinson, and Adam Thielen. So there's your top 10 there, too. And there's, I think, some interesting things in there, too, I think, to be very debatable as well. 2 Tampa Bay guys, cracking out the top 10 again. Is that because you think that Tom Brady's just going to shed it out all over and this is going to be such a high-powered offense? Both these guys are going to put up major fantasy points?
Well, I mean, simply yes. I mean, you got 2 of the better receivers in the league with Chris Godwin teaming up with Mike Evans. You look at what was the problem last year in Tampa. It was famous Jameis. Just couldn't get it done. Threw a lot of interceptions, had a lot of wild throws, and couldn't really connect sometimes with a guy like Evans, even though he's like 6'6". How do you overthrow a guy like that? But with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans coming in here with Tom Brady, who is, I'll say, he's more accurate. He's a little bit smarter with the football. Will get rid of the football quicker than a Jameis Winston. And because of that, more opportunities, I feel, is going to come forward for those 2 guys. And I just feel like both of them are going to have great seasons. Godwin, obviously, I think so much of him that he's going to have a top 5 season in fantasy. We saw what he did last year and was right up there in the argument of top 15, top 10-ish, bottom tier or second tier type of receiver. I think with now a more efficient quarterback at the helm, I feel like Godwin's playmaking ability is going to even jump even farther.
And I can see that Tyreek Hill making it the top 6 or so. Mike Evans there, DeAndre Hopkins. You can't argue any of these guys. And they're up and down. I mean, if you're in the first round, these are all first round basically, is what you're saying. For all these guys, if you come up with them and you don't have your running back, I guess these are all your first picks, and I couldn't argue with any of these really in a sense.
So for Tyreek Hill, I want to make a point here. Tyreek Hill missed 4 games. He was suspended for 4 games. So for not having those 4 games in the productivity that he had, you kind of project this year that if he plays all season, that he's going to basically destroy people. So he's going to probably easily make it into the top 10 for me. DeAndre Hopkins, I feel like is going to drop down out of that top 3 argument. He's still in the top 10, still in the top lower tier top 5 in that 5th spot. But then again, I know because he went to Arizona, everybody wants to believe that he's going to just destroy everybody in the league. But going to a new team, different offense, is he going to be the focal point of that offense like he was in Houston? Because in Arizona, they got plenty of weapons to throw to. It's not just Hopkins and Will Fuller like it was in Houston. It's Hopkins, Larry, Kirk, Andy Isabella.
Yeah.
You got other weapons to throw to, so look out for that. The distribution of the football is going to be different, I feel like, in Arizona, which is going to kind of drop Hopkins a little bit. We already talked about Evans. Devontae Adams, I still have him as my number 3 because he is one of the best receivers in football. He always, no matter, even if you double team the guy, he's always going to produce. He's not going to produce to, above Julio Jones's level or whatnot. And I will go as far as to say this. If he does have a little bit of a down year because Green Bay's offense isn't really doing well, you could see a guy like Godwin even make it into that 3rd spot. Or Tyreek Hill. I mean, so those guys, it could change really, really quickly as we go through the season. We'll be able to find that information out. But nonetheless, I know a lot of people will be surprised that I have Cooper Kupp in the top 10. I know it's surprising, and he's kind of the go-to guy in LA. Robert Woods gets thrown to a lot. He had something like 15 attempts from Jared Goff, yeah. Robert Woods is definitely kind of the guy that they try to get the ball to a lot more often, but Cooper Kupp, he takes advantages of touchdowns. He had 10 touchdowns last season as a receiver and had over 1,000 yards. I mean, he really kind of blew it up last year, stayed healthy, did his thing, and it showed on the football field. So I think that as long as he stays healthy another season, and with an LA Rams team with their offensive line now healthy, they're still kind of trying to figure out the running back position, and because of that, I feel like they might throw more than they normally do, giving Cooper Kupp a little bit more opportunity to score and rack up fantasy points.
Yeah, and I think a head scratcher. I mean, I understand Allen Robinson is probably their biggest threat here for Chicago. I would like to see how this ankle injury that he has in the preseason here area, offseason, develops. They said it's multiple weeks, so we might not even see him for a little bit. But
yeah,
again,
but
how
here's the
big
thing,
is he going to be fantasy-wise?
He's going to be huge, and this is the reason why. Because it's an ankle. He'll heal. He'll come back in week 3, week 4, something like that. And be one of those critical starters for your fantasy team. Allen Robinson has actually been sneakily one of the most consistent fantasy starters. So don't be afraid to take Allen Robinson. I know some people, myself included, I kind of steer away from Allen Robinson just because of guys like Mitch Trubisky was the quarterback. I think that Nick Foles is going to take that over, which is why I'm comfortable at that 9th spot for him to make the top 10. For me, but nonetheless, he still makes that. Last season, he was right there. He had 250 fantasy points for a receiver. Just to give you a little glimpse, the second place guy, which was Chris Godwin, he had 272 fantasy points. So the difference between second and, say, 10th, 11th, 12th is really not that big of a difference.
Yeah, they're right in the mix.
If as long as you can get a guy that's consistent in fantasy like a guy like Allen, you should feel comfortable with taking him towards the end of the first round, somewhere in the second round, if he gets that far, and just go for it. And then at the number 10 spot, I'm just going to say real quick, Adam Thielen, this was really tough for me. So the last 3, just like I mentioned with running backs, it's really debatable. I mean, it's whatever you're going for. So for me, I look for guys that catch the ball a lot more often, like a Cooper Kupp. He gets more catches. He got more touchdowns. Allen Robinson, more consistent week to week. He'll give you that steady fantasy points, anywhere from 10 to 15 points every single week. And Adam Thielen, he kind of had a little bit of a bumpy road last season. He did get hurt. He missed some time. And
Kirk Cousins was struggling.
And 2 weeks or 2 years ago, he had a phenomenal season. He was like top 3 in fantasy. And I feel like because of his injuries last year, because he was banged up, I feel like this season, the window's getting closed really soon for the Minnesota Vikings to really kind of make a push in the playoffs. And I think that while Kirk Cousins is there, he's going to really have a strong emphasis on getting the ball to Adam Thielen because he's a veteran. He's been there. And now you have a rookie like Justin Jefferson come in. It looks like he's possibly going to be the starter opposite Thielen. will they be able to get enough chemistry and trust built for him to rely on Justin, which I think is going to build over time in the season. But because he's so comfortable with Adam Thielen, it's going to give him more opportunities to thrive.
There you go. I mean, again, like he said, either way you split them, again, it's within few points here and there. It's not majorly drastic here when you're talking about wide receivers.
Yep.
You're definitely going to try and bundle up as many as you can here. I mean, depending on what your league is,
and
too.
I just want to say this real quick.
So.
It's really, like I said before, those bottom three, you can debate Keenan Allen being in there. You could debate guys like Kenny Galladay. You could even say Julian Edelman will still have a really good season even though Tom Brady's not there. I kind of disagree with that, but nonetheless, there's guys like Tyler Lockett who actually kind of impressed me last season in fantasy, really made a name for himself, and Kenny Galladay, another guy, Devontae Parker. He came on strong late in the season, especially after Preston Williams got hurt. Then the Miami Dolphins were kind of forced by hey, we got to give it to Parker and let's see what he can do. Did a great job down the stretch. Now that you have Preston Williams and Devontae Parker both side by side yet again this season, it's going to be interesting to see who ends up the number one targeted receiver. Because now that we've seen Devontae Parker play extremely well, we've seen Preston Williams come on earlier in the year last year. I wonder who's going to be the favorite.
Absolutely. So there you go. There's Joe's top 10 fantasies list here. Let's go look at them again. Once again, here we go. Here's Joe's top 10 fantasy quarterbacks. And there's your list. Lamar Jackson taking up the top spot. Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, Drew Brees, Dak Prescott, Tom Brady, Deshaun Watson, Kyler Murray, Matt Ryan, and Josh Allen there in your top 10. Now moving on to the top 10 fantasy running backs. You got Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Zeke Elliott, Alvin Kamara, Austin Ekeler, Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones, Dalvin Cook, Kenneth Drake, and Nick Chubb. And then finally the wide receivers are Michael Thomas, Julio Jones, Devontae Adams, Chris Godwin, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, Cooper Kupp, Allen Robinson, and then Adam Thielen cracking out the top 10. So there you go. Tell us what you think. Drop a comment there down below, and also on Facebook and YouTube as well. So a pleasure having you guys with us tonight. Thanks for joining in. Really excited about fantasy.
This weekend, baby, 2 drafts are happening.
Drafts. He's got 2 drafts coming up. A lot of people wait till the last little bit here, so it's coming. It's coming. So, I mean, you guys better get it in. Do your homework. Again, check on injuries here and there, because I know a lot of people just get the cheat sheets. They look, pick a guy, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, that guy's not around anymore. He's out or something. So that's why you do it late, though. That you got to get your homework down. Get it late. And now, Joe, we want to talk about strategies even, too, here. I know when I did it, I looked at, I had some certain guys in my head where I wanted to know, but I had the cheat sheets around. And when I attack a draft, I like to look at best available that's around still. I see who somebody picked. I'm looking, gazing for a guy. If somebody ahead of me picks my guy, then I'm like, all right, well, this is a guy I was looking at too. He's probably my best available and a need depending on what particular round I'm in, where my need is. And one thing you got to pay attention to that some people that just start, you just posted a video about Fantasy 101. Some people don't pay attention to bye weeks. They get these loaded players that are nice, and you look and they're also like, oh, they're all on the same bye week. Oh, no. And that's what I play into easy. I just look, I'm like, I would like that player, but the bye week is this. And I'm like, I'd rather swip, I'm going to get this guy. He's a better value pick. Or maybe I'll say, I could get this guy now. I'm going to go for this guy, and then I can come back around and probably get the other guy who has a better bye week for me. That's how I attack it.
Okay. I mean, I don't even bother with the bye weeks. To me, I don't care about the bye weeks at all. I don't care if I have 2-3 guys that have the same bye week. I go for value. So, like you mentioned, when you see that guy, you're like, I really want this guy because I think he's going to do really well. Might not be elite status,
but
he's
going
to be consistent.
Too, right, Joe?
What's that?
If you think a guy's going to do really well, but he's almost like a sleeper pick, don't draft him like first or second or third.
No, really, and that's why I'm trying to get this point across. It's about value. So let the draft come to you. Don't rush in say, I definitely want, I want Julio Jones bad. So don't go out there and if you're picking in the top 5, top 6, top 7, even top 8. Just because you want Julio Jones, don't take him anyway because you really want him and just to cement it. You have to do what the draft is dictating to you. So don't rush there. I know people have their favorites. I have my own. Hey, I've had my fair share of guys being picked either right before me or 2 or 3 picks before me, and I was like, I really wanted him. But it's okay. Remain calm. Go by your – and here's the other thing too is go by your board, but make your own board. Like, do your own homework. Figure out guys that you do like, what you don't like. There are guys every single season that I will literally cross right off my list. I have no interest in having them on my fantasy team. I don't think they're going to have as good of a year as some others might think, and that's fine. Everybody has their own opinion. So go with what you know. Do your homework and highlight guys or circle them or whatever you want to do. Check mark them. Guys that you are really interested in or you think that they are going to do better than other people might think, and go forward with that. But don't get anxious to try to jump on a guy. And the other thing, too, is it brings me to my next point, is getting anxious to take a position because someone else took them. So, like we've seen the guys that have a run on defenses, midway through the draft or something like that. No, don't fall into that whole scenario because they're wasting a pick on a defense or wasting their pick on maybe even a tight end too early. It's okay. Let it go. We do know that tight ends they're not as deep, but if you can't get the top 3 or top 4 tight end, it's okay. You're gonna be fine. There are other options that you can stream throughout the season later on in the rounds. Kind of mix and match based on matchups every week. It's okay. You can always come back and counter that and still have a solid roster at the end of the draft.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. And that's the one thing you see in some of these drafts, too. That's kind of the game changer sometimes for some of these. You see it in the NFL draft sometimes with some of the picks that lay down, and you're like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. In a fantasy draft, you're waiting for that guy. Just be like, boom, I'm picking my defense now or whatever. Or I'm picking this now, and you're like...
Just because they're the number 1 rated.
All right, there's a run on the defenses now, everybody. This is who he picked it. Here he goes. He just unplugged it.
That's
you know
it.
what I mean?
We got to grab him now.
Now you got to watch it. This guy did it.
Got to grab him now.
So you got to watch that and how that dictates the draft. And it could change a lot of different things.
And
then you look at that board and you look at it like... How did this happen? Sometimes you're like, wow.
And that's okay because if they want to make a run on defenses or kickers or whatever, I know some people like to pick their starting lineup first, and that's where you tend to get some of the guys that pick earlier positions than normal. But it's okay because what that does, it takes up their draft pick for that position, like defense, but that pushes down a talented player to you, whether it be a running back or a receiver that you were hoping to get. Now you can because there was a run on defenses or so forth.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
He chose one.
Yeah, possibly.
One other tip I'd like to give everybody, too, is not to, everybody's excited about the rookies that get drafted every year. Oh, this guy, I think he's going to make a huge impact at receiver, and this guy's going to be awesome at running back. Listen, I have a couple of running backs that are young in my mind that I absolutely love, who I think quite possibly, not initially, not in the first half of the season, but maybe down the stretch, maybe they become a little bit more prominent in their offenses. But those are long shots. Those guys you kind of want to take as either handcuffs later in the rounds, or those late picks are supposed to be to fill your roster depth. And with those picks, you can kind of go out there and maybe take a gamble at somebody as a rookie receiver or someone that you think is going to be more prevalent in the offense, or a running back that you feel could earn a starting job maybe by the end of the season. And quite honestly, if because of an injury occurs to that starter, they get pushed into that limelight, into that starting position, and now you're in the playoffs with still a starting caliber running back. So those long shots, if you got guys that are favorites like that, are rookies or young guys who you think are up and coming, feel free in the later rounds to go ahead and just take a flyer at somebody, you know what I mean, that you really like. Mm-hmm. So I mean, and it happens every single year. It's just a roll of the dice. Sometimes we hit, a lot of times we miss, but that's what makes the draft fun. is I feel like more of the later picks where you're kind of like, I think I'm smarter than everybody. I'm going to take this guy from the Baltimore Ravens. No one's expecting this. He's going to be amazing. And then, you're like, oh.
Or you have that idea that somebody ahead of you just picks it and you're like, you were thinking when I was thinking.
Exactly. It happens, and that's what makes the draft fun. And and just have fun with it. Don't get too nervous and anxious about everything, and just kind of let the draft come to you. You know guys that you like. Make sure you have a plan going in. Not necessarily like, I'm going to definitely take a quarterback in this round. I'm going to definitely take a running back in this round. Let the draft come to you. Go based on value. It's okay if you don't take the number 1 receiver in the second round or the later in the first or something like that. It's okay. You know how many receivers are going to be viable this season? Receivers are probably the deepest position in fantasy. You can get a starting caliber receiver, in almost in the later rounds. I mean, because everybody's kind of battling back and forth. What should I do? Should I take this? Should I take that? So stay calm. Stay with your own list. Make sure you go in with a plan, like guys that you like, guys you don't like, and stick with it. Do not buckle from it, as much as your friends might entice you to.
And that's what they're going to do. People are going to throw screens at you, try and throw you off. Now, Joe, you've been a commissioner, I think, for years now, in case you guys didn't know, on fantasy.
Yes, sir.
Now, for anybody that would just try and start a league right now and be a commissioner for the first time, saying, I want to handle this now, do you have any advice for them, one? And then, two, what particular type of, let's say, not exactly scoring, but say, what about waivers even, too? Do you like the fact that, the lowest, scoring team that week gets the guy, or how are waivers run and free agents picked up in your particular leagues, as opposed to others? You think?
Right. So what I like to do with I run 2 leagues. So what I like to do with my leagues, I like to make them as comparable as possible to the NFL, how the NFL's run. And that makes it the simplest, and it also makes it kind of fair. I know some people like to do the auction free agent list type of thing, where you have fake money in your pot, and say somebody
you bid on it, right?
Say somebody cuts somebody that got injured, but they'll be back in 4 weeks, and you're like, oh man, I'm going to bid on that guy. You don't know what other people are bidding. It's almost like if you're one of those better teams and you say, well, I'm already one of the better teams, I'm going to throw 50 fake dollars at that position just to get them so no one else can get them. I feel like that's not as fair as having an actual waiver wire for just like the NFL does. So like when a player gets released in the NFL, there's a waiver wire system where worst to first type of thing goes on. If you select, say they claim that player and they get it, well, next week they're on the bottom of the list. It rotates.
It rotates once you grab a player.
So it keeps it fair. It keeps it moving type of thing. So everybody gets a chance to get whoever they're trying to get that week. That's one thing. Another thing too is I get a lot of questions about rosters. Like if you're just starting a league, well, what kind of a roster? You've seen 2 quarterback leagues where they have 2 quarterbacks and a running back and 2 receivers and 2 tight ends and all these kind of wacky formations. But again, I like to keep it as close to the NFL style of play as possible. So now we know that in this era, it's more high aerial passing attacks, that sort of thing. So what in traditional fantasy, we used to have just 2 receivers. So now I've kind of expanded mine to 3 receivers. So 3 starting receivers, 2 starting running backs, 1 quarterback, a tight end, a flex position, kicker, and defense, a team defense. So it's more resemblance of today's offenses, and I feel like it adds a little bit more, creativity now, because with that flex spot, you can have either a 4th receiver, a 2nd tight end, or a 3rd running back if you wanted to. Add a little bit more creativity. Still kind of comes close to the actual formations of today's NFL. And I just feel like it's a little bit more fun that way.
Yeah, I agree with you there, too, as well. I don't really like the non-realistic, like, let's do 2 quarterbacks, let's do this many guys just to build up more points. So it's a big points fiesta thing or whatever you want to do.
And you mentioned big points. Now, big points, you can change that in your scoring settings. Not everybody is going to be the same in terms of their scoring settings and whatnot. I like to keep it pretty simple and pretty straightforward. So for me, for quarterbacks, it's every 25th yard you get 1 point. Every touchdown is 6. I mean, just like any other time. Your kickers, obviously, it's 1 point for an extra point. It's 3 points for a short field goal for like 30 yards and in. Anything past that, from 30 to I think 40, I have it. It goes up by 1 point, so it's 4 points. And then if you have 50, it's actually no, it's 30 to 50 is 4 points, and then from 50 to past 60 is 6. So. So it's 5. So those type of scoring, you can implement whatever you want with any one of those positions. But I feel like just keep it kind of standard almost. It's almost like a standard scoring system, and I like to just keep it simple because you can get really crazy. Jim mentioned earlier in the show bonus points. And I used to have that in my league early on because I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. If you throw over 40 yards for a touchdown, that's a bonus 5 points. But then I started to realize that it kind of got a little ridiculous because teams were losing based on bonus points rather than actual fantasy points. So I kind of decided to change that, take those out of there.
Right. I hear you there. And one thing it kind of bothers me sometimes with some of the defenses putting up points or getting like ridiculous points for just yardage that they've held teams to or something like that in a sense. That just doesn't even show that's a great defense. It could be just terrible special teams, and it gives the team, great field position or whatever, and here and there. So I think that's, part of, I guess, part of your defense.
Just so you know, special teams does not count against the defensive yardage. No. So defenses, like Jim was just saying, you can basically give points based on how much yardage the defense gives up or doesn't give up. And I feel like it's a good way, as long as you don't get crazy with the points system, it's a good way to kind of, figure out who had a good fantasy defense and who didn't, but just don't get it too crazy. Don't give like 20 points for a defense that kind of held somebody to 100 to 150 yards or something like that. Keep it in moderation. 5 points here, 10 points there, and then also on top of that, the defenses do get, like, if they get an interception, that's 2 points in my league. If they create a fumble, that's a point. So just don't get crazy with your point system if you're starting a league. I know it sounds like it's going to be fun. Oh, we're going to have huge, crazy numbers and everything else, but it almost kind of takes away a little bit of the fun, a little bit of the competitiveness if you start giving like bonus points away and that sort of thing.
Yep. So there you go. There's some fantasy advice for you guys. Anyone wants to start a league, be a commissioner, anybody join.
And I will say this. I have to say this. Yeah. It's not all rainbows and unicorns being a commissioner.
It's not fun and games.
I will say this. Speaking from experience, and I know other commissioners out there, they can feel my pain. It's nothing is worse than when you have a full league and people cancel on you basically the week before your draft. That is not fun. Then you got to try to find coverage for it. You got to see if anybody will jump in last second. That's not fun. Also, collecting money. If you have friends that don't have, and this is if you charge money. Not all leagues do require money, but if you are running a league where there's a buy-in of some sort, make sure you have people that you can depend on to pay the league dues, and that way everybody gets to share in the fun at the end of the season.
Where's my money, bitch?
Yeah,
100%. That's what it's like too.
It is.
On the
that's
phone.
What
that's what it's like. There are little nuances of being a commissioner that's nice. You know what I mean? However, a lot falls on you. You have to get a draft kit. A lot of times, people that join your league, they don't chip in for these extras. You know what I mean? So the draft kit comes out of your pocket. You gotta be really responsible and organized, because you gotta take all this money, keep it organized, divvy out the payouts during or at the end of the season. So there's a lot of responsibility with being a commissioner. But also the other fun things that you get to do is you get to basically be God for fantasy football. You basically get to decide Are you for or against the trade? Do you allow it go through or not go through, depending if it's fair or not? You get to set up you dictate where the draft is going to be held. Always stay in good communication with the people that are in your draft too, in terms of like times to get together. If you're having an in-person draft, which I highly recommend, because that experience is what fantasy is all about. Mm-hmm. To have people in person, you get to crack jokes on everybody, on each other. Why would you pick that guy now? It's too early. You know what I mean? So it adds another element to fantasy football. It's a lot of fun. So, again, just be aware of becoming a commissioner.
Yes, my master.
Yes, there you go. Yeah, I know. And, as we're talking about it, I'm thinking, maybe even on our page, we will do a couple polls. How about that? Poll, do you like online or in-person drafts? What do you guys think out there? Throw it out there. Another poll even, too. If you do in-person, what's your favorite type of item, like food to have there or something like that? We would always do like a VIP party, have beer,
We've had it,
and food and wings or whatever. I mean, it was a party.
If it wasn't,
it might last a little while, but we had a lot of fun.
Yeah, we did. We definitely did, and we've been at a lot of different venues. So
absolutely.
I've had the luxury of getting in contact with like Juniors is like a restaurant bar that we had here. Mm-hmm. We had the draft
Capital
there
Region.
1 year.
Yep.
We had the draft at Hooters before. Mm-hmm. We kind of bounce around year to year, like to different venues, so it kind of keeps it all fresh and new.
Yep, Jillian's of Albany, we had it too. Man.
We've had it at Jillian's when it was
Jillian's. Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, it's a total blast. Like I definitely recommend doing fantasy. I know there's some headaches as a commissioner going through it, but in the end, you might be hesitant to do it again. Like I almost had the thought process of canceling both my leagues. I'm like, I just want to play. I don't want to run it anymore.
Yeah.
But then you get closer. You start to get that itch. Be like, hey, I get the guys back together. We're going to have some fun. Yeah, and then it's just like, it just washes away.
There you go. So, I mean, on the fantasy note, too, here I have our In the Know fact of the day here, Joe. And just so has it here,
let's go. What do
I
we got?
decided to come up with a fantasy fact here. And check this out.
Okay.
In August 1963, Wilfred Bill the Gill Winkenbach is credited for forming the inaugural fantasy football league. He was the guy that started it all for everybody back in 1963. That's when people were even thinking about fantasy football. Isn't that amazing? We could have been doing it that long. All right, but it was called the Greater Oakland Professional Pigskins Prognosticators League.
Hell?
I think I said that correctly. I'm not sure. That's a lot of P's and stuff.
Oh, my God.
Right. The league was consisted of 8 members. Now, 8, like a lot of people hate that in some of these fantasy leagues now, too. They got to do like 10's a magic number. 12 is okay. But some even, when you get crazier, I think our buddy Steve Likens was like, I'm doing a 14 person. And then the roster that he had, we were mind blown with the people that he had. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But 8 members here. Each roster had 2 quarterbacks. There we go. 4 halfbacks.
That's where it started.
You can't even 4 halfbacks, 2 fullbacks, 4 offensive ends, even 2 kick punt returners, 2 field goal kickers, 2 defensive backs, linebackers, and 2 defensive linemen. So he did like a whole team. Joe, check that out. It is pretty weird.
I will
that's
say,
in depth. That's a lot of.
That is in depth, but it is not as in depth as a season that I had run as a commissioner. I basically had a league for one season where I wanted to try out IDP. So I wanted to try out individual defensive player drafting. And I was really intrigued by it. I'm like, this is kind of cool. You get to draft your own defense. You can customize it the way you want to. But I also had people draft their offense. Mm-hmm. So it was a very daunting task, very extremely long draft, as you can imagine. But it was kind of cool, like to be able to
enjoyed it.
To be able to pick your own safety in your corner and your linebackers and your defensive ends and tackles and all that thing. I thought it was wild. Granted, it only lasted that one season because it was just too much.
It was long and intense.
The draft was crazy. It was literally all day into the night type of deal. And as fun as it was to set up your lineup week to week, it was just too much to deal with for that kind of draft process. It kind of really drained everybody by the end of it.
It was crazy. I had a sick team, and it was, again, one of those teams I had. My defense, I could just name them all off. Half of my offense I can't remember. But But again, another league where I went had 2 losses. I was the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
I get far, and then I finally play the winner of like the wild card round.
Yeah.
This douchebag that's like a 6 and 7 or some crap. Somehow my guys just lay an egg, or they like sat all their players, the teams did, and I don't muster up a win and I lose, and then I'm heartbroken again because I picked the best regular season teams, and then they fail me in the end.
Yeah,
and that's partially why I just quit, man.
You did phenomenal, but that's the thing that's fantasy for
I think
you.
in that year, though, that year was different. That year was one of the anomalies, and there was a guy that was, I think, we had 2 divisions in each half or something like that, I think, or something or other.
Just 2 divisions.
Was it?
Yeah.
Well, because I know, I think it was Niles maybe, or it was the other guy. He was my nemesis because he had a sick team.
Yes,
we ended up playing each other somehow, and that's what I mean. It was like, oh, I get him after all this, and then he ended up beating him like, you son of a, and he went on, I think, to win it even too, and I was like, I was like, that was the only guy I could. That was like my 2 losses, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think that's really how it planned out.
Oh, I was just hoping I didn't get that, and it was the game that he had ahead of time was tough. So
and that happens a lot in fantasy.
It was an amazing thing, though.
Right.
I love doing that.
Absolutely,
even though it was long.
I know it was long. A lot of people complained about how long it was, but that happens to. I mean, everybody knows that in fantasy. Like, it does happen. Like, you'll have a really good team. You're kind of killing it in your league in the regular season. Then you get to the playoffs. This happened to me this past season. I had a really good team going into the playoffs. I was the lower seed this time, but I fought my way just to make. Once you make the playoffs, anything can happen because that late in the season, you never know when an injury is going to, come up. You never know when, players how much they're going to play, because if they're a team going into the playoffs, maybe they rest their players a week or 2 weeks before the end of the season. So a lot of factors come into it, and basically it just comes right down to luck, really. But I won the first round. I get into the second round, and my team scored like bananas. Like, I'm talking 180 plus points, and I still lost. I lost by a point. A point.
Heartbreaking. I know it is.
Point.
That's what everybody loves about this stuff.
And I was the lower tier, but my team performed well. So I'm thinking, I'm looking at the score like every once in a while. I'm like, wow, I already scored that many points. Oh, holy! I'm over 100 already before halftime. I'm like, this is insane. I didn't think I was going to lose. Then when I checked the final score, I'm like, he beat me by a point. Are you kidding me? That ended my reign. And mind you, had I moved on, my team scored 200 points the following week, and I would have just won it. So I mean,
isn't that when you see like what ifs?
It does happen. We got to take the good with the bad. Even if we have a phenomenal team, you never know how it's going to end up.
Yep, absolutely. So there you go. That's our.
But just so you guys know out there, we are your shoulders to cry on.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
after or during the season, feel free to come on the show. Comment below about your fantasy questions week to week. Who should I start? Who should I sit? Who should I add? Who should I drop? All those questions, they're more than welcome. Come in here, comment below. Let us know how you're doing, how your fantasy team is doing. Let us know if you have any questions, anything at all, as well as your NFL team. We are here for you.
You can just cry on our shoulder all you want. So there you go. All right. So
sounded like Tom Brady
for the last couple of weeks. Yeah, it probably is. The last couple of weeks we've been doing our previews and picks. Leading up to the upcoming season. We have one more week after this, and then the season's going to start. We were thinking so far. It's all scheduled to go, and we get to do our picks competition again, Joe. That's right. We're going to get crazy. We're going to get going again. So this week we're on the AFC and NFC North. So let's get this party going here. First of all, let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens, Joe. Again, a team that went far into the playoffs now, further than they have before. And one of there was the number one rushing offense in the NFL. Lamar Jackson takes a hold of the NFL by storm here. Shows that, listen, I can be more of a quarterback and not just a runner, but he just was able to do it all.
He could run for sure.
He could definitely run, but even hitting some of the guys open, making some of the plays that he needed to make, made his name known out there. So what's your take so far here on the Baltimore Ravens?
The Baltimore Ravens, and you brought up Lamar Jackson, which is where I exactly want to start. Not only was he extremely, extremely difficult to deal with when he took off and ran, but he worked his tail off in the previous offseason to get better in his passing game, and it really did show this past season. I look for him to even take another step forward. Now, I did mention early on about the Ravens and how they're probably going to aim to pass a little bit more often, so it's going to kind of open up the offensive playbook and see really what Lamar Jackson can do as a quarterback. Last season, he still kind of was more of a runner than he was a passer. The offense that was designed for Lamar Jackson and company is just basically predicated on different option run routes, trickery in the backfield, and that's kind of really what opened everything up. So now I'm interested to see, being in the same offense yet another season, are they going to critique it a little bit differently now this season? Because defenses aren't dumb. They get one full season of game tape on you, and they're like, oh, well, if you run the same offense, they're going to figure out how to stunt you, how to slow you down. Sometimes, depending on the defense, they can just flat out stop you. So because of that, I definitely could see them kind of switching gears up a little bit, maybe doing a little bit more screen passes, getting the ball out of Lamar Jackson's hands with a little bit quicker, slant routes and drag routes and so forth. So it's going to be interesting to say the least. But Lamar Jackson, he is the king of the hill right now in terms of fantasy quarterbacks, and he's also one of the hardest people to tackle in open space. So watch out for Lamar Jackson this season. I feel like he's going to get yet better again. And with the only problem, though, I have with this offense is, as great of a running team they are, the weaponry that they have at receiver, it remains to be seen. I mean, they did draft in the third round Devin Duvernay, who I was really high on out of Texas. He's another receiver that's kind of comparable to more of a speedster at that position. He can take the top off of a defense. He's extremely fast, runs good routes, but is a little bit underrated coming out of the draft. So I would be ecstatic if Devin Duvernay kind of won that job opposite of Marquise Brown. Then you have two speedsters on either side, and I feel like that can really open up this offense. You do have Willie Snead coming back. He's more of that slot receiver, still a really good receiver that can move the chains and get first downs that way. Their offensive line, still going to be solid. So offensively, if they make those little bit of changes, if they allow Devin Duvernay, I feel, to start opposite Brown, I feel that gives them a little bit more options at receiver. And I would definitely be scared to face these guys week in and week out.
Right. I think I agree with you there, too, as well. When we went and looked at this team earlier on in the summer here, we said that was probably one of their weaknesses there altogether with wide receiver. How is it going to look? Because we haven't been able to really see Lamar Jackson get stopped so much. You know, the running game gets stopped. What happens when finally some teams can contain him, keep it locked in, and he has to try and pinpoint some of these receivers, and they're able then to double, say, Hollywood Brown here, Marquise Brown.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Are some of these other guys? Is Willie Snead going to be the guy that's going to step up here and there? You know, who knows?
I think it's.
Is it Miles Boykin? I mean, is it going to be him? You know, so
I don't think Miles Boykin.
No, so
I think he'll be okay.
Yeah,
like, he's an okay receiver, but again, like there's no no threat besides Marquise Brown. Like nobody knows about Devin Duvernay or if he even could win that starting job. But there's no threat other than Brown to kind of really be to put any kind of fright in the defense's eyes. But defensively, I do want to say one of the biggest acquisitions, I think, for this team, and they were looking for a defensive tackle. Boy, did they get one. Calais Campbell comes over from the Jags, and oh my God, you team him up with Brandon Williams at the nose position, Calais at the 3-4 D end, and they bring in Derek Wolfe, who Derek Wolfe has been hurt relatively more often late in his career, the last 2-3 years. I feel like if he can stay healthy, though, he is going to make some noise at that other DN/D tackle position. Other than that, there's a couple of rookies I want to bring up. They were drafted in the first and third round, respectively. Kind of a little bit, I will say, Malik Harrison went under the radar, so to speak. in the draft. I was extremely high on him coming out of Ohio State. I think this guy can do everything well. He can pass coverage. He can stop the run. And then Patrick Queen slid in the first round. A lot of people projected him to be like a top 15 pick, given his freakish ability and how fast he is and his coverage ability and so forth. But Patrick Queen, they get Malik Harrison, who is penciled in to start, mind you, at middle linebacker since they have the hole there. He's definitely earned that job already. I know it's just practice, really, but still, it's pretty impressive when a team has that much confidence in a rookie coming in. Not to mention, Patrick Queen is going to start at the outside linebacker position. So if these two guys can grow and mature pretty quickly before this week one, learn the defensive playbook, and really kind of execute on Sundays, this is a young, talented duo at linebackers that you could really, they're going to be dangerous. So we'll have to wait and see, obviously, when the games are for real to see how well they play. But if they do pan out this early as a rookie, this defense, that kind of cements this defense. You go past that, and you look at guys like Marlon Humphrey at corner. Marcus Peters is on the other side. Two kind of shutdown corners on this team. The only hole that I could see for this Ravens defense is we know that they just cut Earl Thomas. They moved on from Earl Thomas. He's looking for a new home right now. So there's a hole. Yet, Tony Jefferson is 28 years old, was on the Ravens squad last year, played admirably, and he's still a free agent.
He still is out there.
I wonder... at the safety positions, free or strong, to me, I mean, I don't know enough about these guys that are trying out for the starting positions right now, but there's two big holes in the safeties in the back end of the defense. So that's going to be something to evaluate and to pay attention to. But other than that, they are going to have a strong defense, I feel, just much like they did last year, and their offense. Look for that to kind of grow and mature this season.
You were right on the path with what I was thinking, too. Again, you see Tony Jefferson out there, and he's looking to play, and he says, I'm waiting for the phone call. How come it hasn't showed up yet? So
now. Tony might get the call now to go back to Baltimore.
Again, and they're saying, so far all we're hearing right now is that the locker room didn't agree with what Earl Thomas was doing. I don't know how vocal he was. I don't know if he was getting hard on people.
He got into a fight.
Yep. So there you go.
He got into a fight in practice.
Those guys
and
are
apparently,
together longer than he is.
Right.
So.
Apparently, what the Baltimore Ravens are saying is that he wasn't really well liked in the locker room as well. So he kind of, I don't know what happened. Was it just because of the fight? It almost seems like things were building up to this point. So maybe he just didn't get along with other players in the locker room at first, and maybe he came in with a big ego or something like that, kind of rubbed the whole franchise the wrong way, and then it kind of boiled over into a fight one day at practice. He got kicked off the football field, and the team just said, you know what, we had enough.
Yeah, I know. We've seen that sort of attitude there with Seattle, too, as well.
Tony, get ready for the phone call. Probably tomorrow you're going to sign a deal with the Baltimore Ravens.
Next up, we're going to be talking about the Cincinnati Bengals. And since we're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals here, Swervo Gaming is in the house with us tonight. Swervo's in the house. We just got done wrapping up talking about some fantasy. He's in the house. He said he just got out of work. So what's up? What's up, Swervo? Hey, it's good to see you. Thank you for tuning in with us. Saying you got out of work. We really appreciate it. Did you guys know Joe Burrow threw a touchdown to himself in high school? LOL, I didn't know. Just thought you should share with a rookie topic. Yeah, there you go. Absolutely. And I didn't hear that tidbit, but you do hear over training camps. What you're talking about is the throws that he's making, even against the number 1 D here against him. He's needling some throws here in between defenders and making some plays. So it looks pretty optimistic for them. We did mention earlier there are some injuries that they're having. So, I mean...
Yeah, John Ross just got recently injured.
John Ross again, too.
Not a surprise, though.
Yeah,
not a surprise.
A.J. Green did suit up for practice this week, so he's on the comeback here.
He's going to be good.
Joe Mixon still hasn't, and what is it? Carlos Dunlap, I think, is still out for a little bit, too. Again, he's probably just taking it easy, too, as well. Some of the older veterans, they want to probably reserve their energy here and there, try and stay as healthy as they can. Don't want to hurt anything in these last couple weeks here before they get going. And we know these next couple of weeks, the first weeks of the season, I think are going to be a little rough. We're going to see at least 4 to 5 weeks of some pretty up and down football, I think, just football. Because of the lack of playing here with the preseason.
No preseason
doing
games.
Some scrimmages here and there, but that isn't going to be nowhere near to like full speed. So we're seeing some injuries here and there. It's going to be interesting moving forward with the season start. And the Cincinnati Bengals had said they had made their decision on fans, and they are not going to have fans as well in their stadium too. So
a lot
just
of teams
like some
aren't.
teams aren't. So you're hearing
I feel
some
like the
percentages
Chiefs
from
are
other teams.
the Chiefs are almost one of the very few, if only, team that's actually going to have fans opening week. I've seen kind of a lot of teams in the past week or two where they've kind of made an announcement saying, hey, we're not going to have fans for at least the first 2 weeks, and then we're going to see how everything is at that time and make another judgment call going forward. So I feel like that would be, if you want to be cautious, if you want to be careful about that, about this whole scenario with this pandemic going on, and how do we attack this? How do we allow fans or not allow fans? I feel like a lot of teams that are saying, hey, first 2 weeks, we're just not going to have fans, and then after those 2 weeks, we're going to reevaluate and see where we're at as a country, and then maybe we'll open up the doors a little bit here and there. So I feel like that's a smarter route to take maybe, and just kind of and slowly, gradually open it up to the fans. So maybe after 2 weeks, teams decide to open up and say, okay, we're only going to allow about 20,000. We're going to do social distancing around the stadium, and you got to wear your face mask and all this other thing. And then 2 weeks later, if nothing happens, then maybe they open up a little more. Now we're going to open up to like 40, 50% of the fans and then reevaluate and kind of go like that and just open slowly. So something interesting to kind of talk about, but also with this team, with the Cincinnati Bengals, I mean, it's not a surprise. We just mentioned John Ross injured. There's a couple other players like Joe Mixon injured and so forth, which could open up opportunities for guys like T. Higgins, who just got drafted in the second round by the Bengals at receiver. Now that Ross is hurt, not really a shocker, but now Higgins is projected to have more. He's going to get more reps in practice. Maybe he gets a little bit more comfortable in the offense, and maybe he supplants John Ross because of his absence. So that's something to watch for. Also, the Cincinnati Bengals did a great job. They ended up drafting left tackle Jonah Williams in the first round, which I think is an amazing pick. I feel like he's going to be awesome for them and really kind of lock down that left tackle spot. However, on the right side, Bobby Hart is still penciled in as the starter, and I feel like he's going to struggle. So offensive line, they might have gotten stronger in the left tackle spot, but overall, I just don't see this offensive line really doing a really good job for the rookie Joe Burrow come week one. So that's kind of a little bit of a scare. And then on defense, I will say this. They made a huge addition, basically kind of, not really stealing, but they out-offered for DJ Reader's services, the all-pro D tackle from the Houston Texans. I think this is a huge, huge blow to the D-line for the Texans. He was a big-time contributor, establishing some pressures, and kind of, we already know they have J.J. Watt and everything, but when J.J. Watt is healthy and Whitney Merciless and those guys, DJ Reader was a big proponent of them getting free and being able to attack the quarterback. So he moves over to the Bengals. I think that's a big addition for them. Getting a little bit younger at D-tackle. Jim and I both mentioned last season that they are getting along in the tooth at the defensive line position, and they need to at some point address it. They do that here with DJ Reader. Linebackers, kind of a little bit of the unknown. They have Jordan Evans right now. They have other guys kind of trying out and trying to earn the starting jobs.
He pulled a hamstring, and there's right now there a lot's coming out there, but they're saying they're just taking it week to week. Yep. You're hoping it's day to day, but they're saying week to week, see how it goes with them. But
also in the news, you got Mackenzie Alexander.
Yep. Now that's going to be a big part of that defense right there.
Yes, he was going to be the
Mackenzie
corner.
Alexander. Yep.
He was going to be the starting corner, projected to be anyways, for them. Opposite William Jackson III. Wow.
Yeah.
But William Jackson III, great corner. They needed someone to pair him up with. McKenzie was supposed to be that guy.
Yep. Now
he gets arrested. There's a whole other scenario. If you want to learn all the details, make sure you go on our group or page, and we have it posted in the page as well.
On Facebook.
Go ahead and read all about him. Apparently, his father went missing, and Mackenzie Alexander had to leave practice, go search for his father, ends up confronting a man that
was last
seen with his father and demanded results. Guy didn't really want to talk to him, so he ends up beating the crap out of him, and then he gets arrested and so forth. So pretty crazy. Other than that, they are pretty strong real quick at the safety position. You know, when you got guys like Jesse Bates, he's kind of made a name for himself with this club as well as Sean Williams. Both guys real good in the back end.
Yeah, and Swervo is in here with some comments. He said, who got knocked out in a scrimmage? That was Brandon Jackson with the Seattle Seahawks. Got knocked out near halftime. And then they just put him out on a stretcher and a board, but they said he was able to move all of his extremities and he was fine.
So he's going for tests.
Going for tests. They took the rest of the day off actually after that, after halftime and stuff. Just said whatever, we're done, and to show honor for him too and just respect. So he was the guy that got knocked out.
One other point that I just want to bring up real quick is I just kind of caught it at the corner of my eye is they did draft a linebacker in the 3rd round by Logan Wilson, a guy that was kind of in the draft was underrated, not really heavily talked about, out of Wyoming. I really liked his game tape. I think he could develop into a really good starter for the Bengals. I don't know how quick he can, but with the lack of real talent in front of him, I think it could be as quick as this season. He could end up taking that middle linebacker role over right away and really kind of establishing a presence in the middle of the football field.
He says Earl Thomas to the Giants because their rookie went down. Yeah, he's talking about Xavier McKinney's down now. The Giants.
It's a possibility, but
losing guys here and there.
I think the Giants. And I know that money is kind of, you know, the big factor with guys like Earl Thomas and Logan Ryan. But I think if the Giants could pull it off and bring in a guy like Earl Thomas and Logan Ryan, it vastly improves this secondary. A secondary that has major question marks at the cornerback position, opposite James Bradbury. If they could bring in a guy like Logan Ryan to team him up with James Bradbury and have Earl Thomas replace their rookie, even if you send them both to 1-year deals, it would really improve this defense. And a lot of teams in this division might be thinking all of a sudden, wow, this defense in the secondary doesn't look like we're going to be able to throw all day on them. So something to monitor for sure. Where Earl Thomas goes, we don't know. We've heard ties with the Dallas Cowboys. We know that Earl Thomas, when he was in Seattle, kind of whispered in the ear of one of the Cowboys coaches. I think it was Jason Garrett maybe at the time. Said, come get me. Yeah. He's been dreaming to play for the Cowboys. I know he's from the Dallas area in Texas, so we have to wait and see how that all shakes out. Is that real? Is it kind of just out there as a
people
as a
just putting the dots together because they know they have been able to see that happen?
Right.
So I mean, there's other teams that are around in the mix.
I really want to see Earl Thomas in the Giants uniform. I think they just need somebody like that in the back end to bring some tenacity.
That fiery guy that, because Joe Judge, he's all about, do your job, make sure you work hard. This is about discipline.
Oh, you have no worries about that.
Well, I know. That's what he does. That's why. Are you getting that guy? Or what's the problem that caused the fight, though? Are you a guy that's going to cause problems again and piss somebody off in the thing?
Somebody stole his milkshake. I think that's what it was.
Really?
Yeah, in Baltimore.
Man,
and his crab cakes.
You gotta respect, man. You gotta respect the milkshake. That I guess at least it's not chain snagging.
We can spread rumors too.
Yeah. So I mean, Earl Thomas, I agree. I'm a Giants fan. I would love to see him there. That'd be great. Again, because when you're talking about what Julian Love I have now, I'm excited about that. He did so well last year. I'm glad. Just like DeAndre Baker too. You're causing problems. All right, good. You're making it easier for me to part ways with you, bro. I'm good. Go. Bye. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these guys, if you're causing problems, you're gone. I'm one of those fans that's more of a realist. I was the one that said trade Odell, and Dave Gettleman heard me somehow and did it. And, not that are we a little better? So I think so. We have less of the attitude here and there. We're trying to clean up the locker room now with Joe Judge. I think we only saw the beginning of what Daniel Jones can be. I think if he eliminates some of the turnovers here and has a better pocket presence and have a feel of when that pressure is coming around him to get rid of the ball, not hold on to it, we'll see moving forward. This is what's upcoming here in the 2020 season.
I think
it's going to be
exciting. I think you're definitely going to see that because he's got another offseason underneath him, and he already has experience now, so he's going to learn from his mistakes.
Yeah, he brought up this, too. How about this? Earl Thomas to the Jets now to replace Jamal Adams.
Well, they already replaced Jamal Adams now. With that trade, they did get Douglas McDougald, which was the starter from Seattle. Now he's going to fill the hole for Jamal Adams in New York with Marcus May, mind you. So they are pretty much already set at the safety position. Do I think that would be a better idea? I say in terms of talent.
Better talent, right?
Obviously, Earl Thomas is better than Douglas McDougald. However, Earl Thomas is older than Douglas McDougald. McDougald is about 30 years old, and Earl Thomas is kind of in that mid-30 range, so you're only going to have him for a year probably anyway. And do the Jets really want to kind of, if it is about big money, you're not going to want to spend big money on a mid-30-year-old safety. Granted, he plays phenomenally well. He's still, playing at a high level. But I just feel like after making that trade, now they have their so-called starter, and I think they're comfortable with that, and they're going to move forward.
And you got to look at a viable solution here. Is Earl Thomas going to want to go to the Jets?
Probably
not.
What
I mean?
He wants to go to a winning team.
He wants to go to a winning team. He longer in the tooth, like you said. He had it with Seattle. I was thinking of a scenario when he said the Jets. I'm like, Earl Thomas signs with the Jets. They cut McDougald. McDougald signs to the Seattle Seahawks. Boom. It is full circle. There you go, in the finest. But
no, McDougald would sign with Baltimore.
Yeah, maybe go with Baltimore. There you go. That would be hilarious. But who knows? There's a bunch of scenarios floating around. I've heard that maybe the Raiders were looking at him. It's all over. It's a nice name to have out there. There are other names that are out there still, too.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens moving forward. Our team's going to wait until maybe injuries or maybe some COVID sicknesses come, and they're going to be pulling some of these guys that didn't now get the physical going.
For guys like a Earl Thomas, for guys like a Logan Ryan, for guys like even Clowney, who's still out there. All these guys I feel like want big money. We don't really know with Earl Thomas just yet because he's just fresh on the market. But I feel like Logan Ryan and Clowney especially, those guys want kind of big-time starter money, and this late in the game with a week or two left before kickoff, teams aren't going to just shell out big-time money to get you on their squad. Clowney's going to have to definitely come down from his number from $20 million on average per year. He's going to have to come down to like maybe even between $10 to $15 million. Then I could see him signing a deal relatively quickly. And Logan Ryan, there just really hasn't been enough details out to see what he really is looking for, but you got to expect it's got to be a high price tag, given that he's been out there in free agency and he's probably he is the best corner available in free agency. So teams like the Giants or anybody that needs corner, they've probably already had the phone call conversation. We're like, no, we're not going to pay you that much. So he'll still sit out there. Clowney's going to still sit out there until they come down in their asking price.
Yep, and see here, looking on, was it over the cap? It says that Earl Thomas counts for $7 million against the cap. Here, he didn't have a roster bonus or anything like that, so he was making $2 million base salary, $5 million prorated bonus. So that's what you're looking at for him now too. What a team's going to spend again? What's he looking for? We'll see.
I mean, if you can get Earl Thomas on the cheap for just 1 year, like just for this season or whatever, I say go out and get it.
Yeah, I think he would even trade that for a solid team that could be making a run.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it does come down to interest, obviously. Yeah. But if a team that is already like a winning team and they're already established at that safety position, then he's going to be forced to look elsewhere. He's going to be forced to look for a team that possibly could be competing for a division. I mean, some people might laugh, but if the Giants did get Earl Thomas – with that division the way it is, we've seen last year, it was almost like nobody wanted to win the thing. And in the end, the Cowboys like, okay, fine, I guess we'll take it. So how close it came last year and how kind of towards down the stretch, that was all kind of messed up. It was almost like the losing record would win the division. adding Earl Thomas to the Giants, maybe that puts them in that conversation. Maybe it does enough on defense to kind of put them in that competitive race for the division.
Absolutely. I mean, I would like the veteran presence here that they have there already with Blake Martinez there too as well. It would be nice to have Earl Thomas there.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens moving forward. But as far as the Cincinnati Bengals, getting back to them,
yes, sir.
Joe had covered a lot about that there
Go for
too
it.
with
Give
them.
Me what you got.
And what was that? What did I want to touch on? Oh, yeah, there is a battle with Fred Johnson and Bobby Hart now for the right tackle position, too.
Please,
How
Fred,
about that?
win.
Yeah, Fred is looking good so far. So imagine that, him jumping in there and taking that position. One thing I want to bring up, too, T. Higgins looks really great. That was a great pick for them in the second round. He looks great, so you could see him move up, especially if John Ross just doesn't stay healthy and he just tapers off like we were expecting him to do something and it just never happens.
Right.
My secret pick here for them, watch Auden Tate here too. This guy's going to blow it up this year, I think.
He's already doing great in practice.
Is. Yeah, so I think watch out for Auden Tate.
And I feel bad for him
mixer.
because I don't think that he's going to get the opportunity because they drafted T. Higgins.
I hear you.
Because you got Tyler Boyd on the other side there, and John Ross.
But again, a lot of these guys get injured a lot.
Well, John Ross does.
Oh, yeah. And AJ Green, too, even now.
That was last season. So, and it was and here's the thing with AJ Green is I don't care what the reporters are saying out there saying AJ Green. I know he's come out and said I want to be a Bengal for the rest of my career and all that type of thing. But it wasn't too long ago.
Like somebody surrendered.
It was just last offseason where he couldn't wait to get out of the door. He just wanted to get to free agency, wanted to sign elsewhere, and now all of a sudden he's changing his tune. With a rookie quarterback this late in your career, you don't want to go to a winning team right now and possibly win a chip.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't understand it.
Yeah. Again, it's like when like I said, he sounds defeated now. They've told him, no. He's like, I want to go. No. It's like, I want to stay here. I want to stay here. Finally, he went nuts, and he's like, yeah, you're right. I love it here. This is amazing. What was I thinking?
Swervo, just real quick, Swervo Gaming goes Dolphins, ? For Earl Thomas. It's possible. I know that in the offseason, the Dolphins did bring over an expatriate, shocker, and Eric Rowe to take over the starting safety position. And they do have Bobby McCann, who's a veteran of the backfield there for them, who is actually, I believe, coming off another injury last season. So, again, it's going to come down. It's going to come down to money, really. Yeah. That's what it comes down to. Are the Dolphins really kind of looking for safety? Probably not. They're probably content with what they have.
They're sold into the Patriot way, though, too. Again, and what their defense is doing. And again, I think Miami is on the upward trend. But
I do too.
Is Earl Thomas there for the ride? Again, was he? I think he's more looking along the lines of like, I'm going to try and grab onto somebody that's a contender right now. Now that I am free, I'm going to try and find out what's the best spot for me. I only have to take care of myself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So,
I mean, that's the biggest issue now. This late in the game, we got a couple weeks till kickoff. Not a lot of teams are really looking right now heavily for a guy, a safety or so. Usually they're pretty set right now. However, you do have teams, maybe like the Dolphins, if they maybe want to extend an olive branch to Earl Thomas, kind of bring him down to Miami. However, Earl Thomas, like you mentioned before, like I could definitely see him having that mindset. Like, I don't want to go anywhere unless it's with a team that could make a push for the Super Bowl. If that was to happen, okay, I'll go to that team. But again, you got teams like Dallas Cowboys now. There's been rumors about them kind of courting him or bringing him to Dallas. But like they did just sign HaHa Clinton Dix to be a safety down there. Now I do know that if they could possibly team HaHa up with Earl, and now you got a pretty nice duo in the back end, but we have to wait and see.
Absolutely. So let's move forward to the Cleveland Browns, to where now we've got to see a little bit of stuff coming out of training camp for them. One of the noticeable things there is now Baker Mayfield has shed some pounds now. He doesn't look so beefy this year, and he said he's got a new focus, a new vision. He's really dedicated. It's less talking, he's saying, more action. Right. So I think that's what a lot of people have been looking forward to where it's drawn even a lot of fantasy attention. A lot of people are really high on him for fantasy because last year, even though with the mistakes they had made, a lot of people were going down hard on Baker Mayfield. And you're probably going to clip that at one point. But yeah, they were giving him all the blame. It's all his fault. Even though his offensive line had missed Joe Thomas and yes, was depleted here, and all the struggles were on him. He's making mistakes. When you don't have a lot of time, you're getting pressured. You make mistakes. That's how you take down Tom Brady and pretty much any quarterback in the NFL.
Yep.
So, everybody's looking at them again and say, listen, you've got Jarvis Landry still. You've got Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, you've got the talent around you. You've got Nick Chubb in the running game. You've got a great defense even there, too, along with you. Come on. Let's get it going. And sadly, what I'm hearing out of training camp right now is that offense is sputtering. You talked about, with this new offense, are they going to do less running or so? Mm-hmm. They've said so far they're geared to doing more type of running schemes with this offense to try and get moving forward. And so far, again, everything's looked pretty disappointing on the receivers standpoint. Even drops, by the wide receivers, and even interceptions here. It's laying into the defense's hands, so mistakes by Baker Mayfield now. Spitting and sputtering to where this is the year they need to step up and move forward here, Joe. So what do you got to say here about the Cleveland Browns?
Well, I mean, that's the thing, too, is like it's a different offense. So with Kevin Stefanski now taking over as the offensive coordinator from the Vikings, he is seen as more of like a run-heavy type of offense. However, I feel like with this offense, having to relearn a new offense for Baker Mayfield, for the receivers and the route concepts and so forth, you're starting to see like kind of like the learning, the learning problems. Maybe they're just not getting it running the right routes sometimes. It's a little bit of miscommunication on the football field between quarterback and receiver, and you're going to find that whenever you're trying to learn a new offense, sometimes there's little nuances in that scheme that you're just not comfortable with. You're just not, as precise on, and it shows on the football field. And I feel like because we have no preseason games, everybody, now the teaching moments that they could have had with game tape against other opponents and so forth, that learning, the learning curve and the little mistakes that they could correct and go through because they would have game tape against different opponents, that kind of gets pushed off on the wayside, and now they're kind of relying on, practice is practice. They're playing the same guys in and out. You know what to expect from from their own defense, and it's just like it's not showing up. The productivity is not showing up on the football field because they're having to learn a new offense, and it's just different altogether. So. Offensive line looks good. I mean, that's the positive here. With Jedrick Wills being drafted, he was probably my favorite offensive tackle coming out. Yeah, I'm excited to see how well he plays. Is it a position of not just need, but probably like the biggest need Cleveland has had since Joe Thomas left? They just have not had anybody as good or potentially good enough to take over. The other addition on this offensive line, too, that they made is on the other side of the tackle, the right tackle spot, is Jack Conklin comes over from the Tennessee Titans. So it looks like they got some more, solid pieces on this O-line, which is going to help better protect guys like Baker Mayfield, open up some more holes with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Not like they really need holes because they just create their own. But I feel like because there's no preseason games, this Cleveland team is in jeopardy of not being up to par before week 1 happens. And defensively, I think they're still going to play well. There's still going to be a tough defense to go after. But without this offense clicking, and this is kind of the year that people were expecting Baker to kind of come into his own, everybody to finally be clicking on all cylinders and kind of racking up points with a solid defense. Now it's kind of looking grim. And the only other thing I'll say is, we listen to reports that come out of each training camp, and we report them to you guys. But sometimes some reports are not validated. Sometimes guys want to create some debate, like right now. They're saying, receivers are dropping the balls and stuff like that. I'm sorry. I can't see, I can't see Odell Beckham dropping a football. I can't see Jarvis Landry dropping a football. Those guys, I think they're not dropping.
Well, they did mention at least one person. It was Austin Hooper.
Well, Austin Hooper, he's in Cleveland. He's not in Atlanta. I mean, I don't know with him. He doesn't like the uniforms. It's something. But nonetheless, again, this team has so much going for them as far as on the roster. They do have a lot of talent. They just got to execute. And I don't want to go based off a report saying, oh, well, the offense doesn't look good. Reporters don't know what they're looking at. I mean, all they see is maybe the backup overthrowing the football, and they say, "Oh, it looks like Baker. It's got to be. We're going to put that as Baker Mayfield." You know what I mean? So there's a lot of misconception coming out of every training camp, really. So we got to be careful with what's reported and stuff. Yes, maybe they are struggling, but maybe they're going to look like dynamite on week 1. So let's just wait and see. Let's get to week 1 to really kind of evaluate all these teams.
Yep, they're picking up on that new offense. Let's see how it goes moving forward. We've got Greg Schreiner in the house with us tonight. He says they're in jeopardy because of the no-name coach like Kitchens. So, yeah, who knows? Perhaps we'll see what happens moving forward with those guys. Kitchens is out now. Now he's a New York Giant. So we'll see if that ends up helping. I mean, he is only a tight ends coach for the Giants, so but we'll see if the mix of him with Jason Garrett and stuff will help the Giants, moving forward.
I think the Giants did well with assembling their staff. I like the personnel.
Again, when I was skeptical of everything when it first happened, and I was afraid of the Jason Garrett thing. I even met a Dallas Cowboy fan the other day, and it's funny how some of these guys do. I mean, I don't think a lot of them defended Jason Garrett, but once they're gone, they're all like, oh, ha. Now you have him. Now he's your problem.
That's okay, because
he's
a really
before
good.
When every season you were saying, "Oh, we're going to be the best. We're going to be number 1. We're going to Super Bowl."
But here's the thing that people don't get.
What, despite Jason Garrett? Is that
Jason
what
Garrett is an excellent offensive coordinator, and that's what the Giants hired him to be. Yeah. So I feel like Daniel Jones is going to excel better this year because Jason Garrett is now the offensive coordinator. We've seen it with Tony Romo. Garrett was the offensive coordinator when Tony Romo was with the Cowboys, and we saw how well and how good Tony Romo turned out. So I could just see that now that Garrett is with the Giants in the right position as an offensive coordinator, I think Daniel Jones is his play on the football field is just going to excel.
I think one factor with the defense that is going to hurt them a little bit here for Cleveland is Grant Delpit going down with the injury, the Achilles injury. I think is tough. I think he was slotted to make a spot here for them.
I was excited to see Grant. The only problem is that he is a rookie, guys. I mean, we can't. He hasn't even done anything in the NFL.
But now he's not. He's this season.
I mean, hey, Cleveland, it's just like you never had a safety there, so it doesn't really matter, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah.
But here's the thing: is Grant Delpit? There was some teams that were skeptical about him. Is he an in-the-box safety? Can he cover? There was a lot of back and forth. So, yes, it sucks that Delpit is hurt for Cleveland. We're not even get to see how good or maybe not good he was going to be, but. It would be different if we had like a year of evidence on the football field say, oh, well, he's a pretty good player. That really sucks. It sucks that we want to have any kind of footage, but you could almost say the same thing about the Raiders with John Abram. I mean, he went down halfway, half of a game and was done for the season. So Raiders still don't know if Abram's going to be good. I know everybody says, oh, he's going to be amazing. Well, you don't really know yet.
Yeah, and how's the injury on Greedy Williams? I know he's banged up too. So, I mean, they're getting a little banged up here in the secondary here for the Cleveland Browns with, a week and a half or so to go into the season.
And that's
are they going to stumble and fumble into it? But
I with the Browns defense, their cornerbacks are really good on paper. So, and we seen Greedy Williams last year as a rookie was amazing.
Yeah.
So I could just see with these two rookies, with these two corners coming in this season, I think the world of them. I think they're going to be great. Greedy Williams, he might be banged up right now, but there's a lot of players across the NFL that all have that banged up tag. They're going to be healthy by weekend or healthier by week 1 enough to just say, hey, they're absolutely fine and they're going to go play. So. But, I don't look too much into it unless it's a major injury. If it's a major injury, like we don't know the status yet on David Montgomery. He was carted off the football field. There's not a whole lot of details out there just yet. Maybe something popped up and we haven't seen it yet. But so far, Carter off the football field was in immense pain apparently in his leg. So that's never a good sign.
Yep.
And again, takes us back to fantasy. If you drafted him already,
some scary stuff. Yeah, definitely. So let's move forward to now the Pittsburgh Steelers here. They get Ben Roethlisberger back here this season. James Conner again here with them as well. Juju Smith-Schuster had a lackluster year, and we kind of called that where he was going to get teamed up. Now he was the number one.
Yep.
You've got him and still James Washington there, though. And we said this also in the draft. It's like the way these Steelers work, they can let wide receivers walk away and move on, and they're going to find another one in the draft, and they get Chase Claypool here. And so far, again, in training camp, he's looking amazing, and you can see this guy be a nice little light here for them and a weapon for Ben Roethlisberger to get this offense going here.
Yeah, Chase Claypool I had in my original draft rankings coming out of college, out of Notre Dame. Immense receiver. Big man. I mean, he's like almost 6'5", and runs like a 4.5 40. Like it's insane. Great receiver. Didn't really get thrown the ball to a lot at Notre Dame. They were more of a running team, so that's why he kind of slipped a little bit. But man, I love this kid. I think the world of him. I definitely could see him starting week 1 over James Washington. I really believe in him. And to have James Washington is no slouch. You could just put him in the slot, and that's dangerous enough, right? You also have Dante Johnson, who kind of, he played adequate last year, got a little bit of an opportunity, but not a whole lot. So, yeah, you're right, Jim. Like the Steelers are one of those franchises that kind of just seem to find talent in this position. They're just great at finding receivers. And Chase Claypool, I don't think is any different. I could see him starting. If that does happen, I feel a lot more confident in the Steelers offense. But if it doesn't, I'm kind of still questioning, going into the season, because they do have James Conner healthy again. He is going to be the featured back yet again, going to be highly relied upon to move the football and catch out of the backfield. But where's the other answer? Like, if Juju is out there and Chase Claypool is not starting opposite him, I don't have as much confidence in the Steelers' offense as I once did. At the tight end position, we know Vance McDonald was there. He had kind of a big year last year for the Steelers without Big Ben. Now, here's the other big question mark, Jim, and I'm going to ask you this, is Big Ben technically hasn't been playing in 2 years. And I don't know if you noticed the same thing, but he looks like he came in overweight.
Yeah.
So being out of football for 2 years, looking like you're a little overweight, do you think he's going to return back to his form that he previously once had?
I don't think so. I think he's pretty much on his way to be checked out. You can feel confident and say, listen, I'm back and I'm ready to even play some more. Yeah, I'm sure you are. Everybody says that. They never want to get taken out. But facts are facts. The last season, again, he just injured himself making a throw, like blasted his elbow out or whatever.
Right.
And you've seen it with we've looked at other stats and the projections on how much he might potentially get injured here too. It's fairly high just with the way his stature is, and now with being out of shape, that again leads you into other issues where you could potentially be injured. Maybe he can't take those hits so much, and maybe he doesn't want to. So I think he's going to be he wasn't very mobile before, but he was one of those guys that was able to shrug off a couple of things. You're going to see less of that, I think, this season, and it's going to be a little rough going for Ben Roethlisberger.
So being away for 2 years, and this is kind of something that I'm concerned about, is, yes, Big Ben is a veteran. We all know that. In his prime, he was amazing.
He was decent, yes.
However, now being out of the game for 2 years, coming back, trying to get back into football shape, and trying to – chemistry is going to be huge. Is he going to be – with this kind of unique offseason where there's no preseason games, week 1 comes, is he going to have the same chemistry with guys like Juju Smith-Schuster or James Washington? Do you think he can develop that relatively quickly?
I think that will come right back to him again because he is a veteran quarterback. I mean, a lot of those guys don't really need to develop some chemistry with some of these other guys, like the newer guys, like maybe Claypool, but again, he's looking really nice. I don't know how much first-team reps he's getting here and there possibly. But again, he knows Juju Smith-Schuster. He knows James Washington. He knows those guys. He knows he can rely on them. He knows Vance McDonald here too at the tight end position. He's familiar with these guys. You know what I mean? So he knows that just what nuances they could do to each other with each other and know what page they're going to be on.
Yeah, mentally I could see that.
I think again, I think game time is going to come down for him and how it's going to move along. For him.
And that's what I'm saying. Like I don't feel like he's going to have the chemistry down with these receivers. I know he knows these guys. He knows how they run the routes. He knows the tendencies that they on their moves and what they're thinking. But as far as his throwing mechanics, as far as him connecting with these guys and being as accurate as he used to be, not having to throw a football for 2 years is a really, really long time.
Right.
Andrew Luck will tell you that.
Okay.
And we saw Andrew Luck when he tried to come back, how kind of he wasn't as accurate as he once was. He did kind of make some overthrows, kind of even underthrows. So I wonder if we're going to see the same thing for Big Ben in week 1.
It took Andrew Luck a little time, but you saw him start to turn it on. At first he was a little shaky, but then he was turning it on and doing well. Again, it's a veteran coming back. He already is on his twilight year here. Everybody wants to talk about Drew Brees, and he's washed up. I'm looking, if you want to say washed up, and I have these two names, I'm going to Ben Roethlisberger before I'm going to Drew Brees, because Drew Brees still plays at an elite level. It's the first time he's gotten injured, I think, since a long time, back when he was at the Chargers, I think. So, and he's only decided to walk away, I think, too, for the job here in the booth here, I think, for ESPN, or is it what? I can't remember what.
And he hasn't decided to retire at the end of the year. So it's the last 3 years, Drew Brees has had this on the table. Like, I'm going to think about it, and then comes back. I'm going to think about it. And he comes back. So Drew Brees, even though he has a job lined up with being an analyst, I feel like he's still going to have the same approach this year, too, at the end of the season. Do I think I can come back and play my level that I want to play at? And then we'll see where he goes with that. But Big Ben, we'll see. I mean, I'm a little skeptic about Big Ben this year. I don't know if it will come, like you were saying, Jim. It does come with veterans over time and reps. He will get back to where he was throwing the ball 2 years ago. But initially, that's where I think it might be a little shaky. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
One thing the Steelers don't have to worry about is their defense.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a lot of guys. They're all still the same center that they've had here. Everybody's coming back really strong. So, I mean, we've talked about this season going forward. It's the group that stays together so far is going to be the best. The defense is no joke.
The one guy they're missing on this D-line, though, is Javon Hargrave, who ended up, I believe, going to the Eagles. That's a big loss. I mean, Javon Hargrave kind of was like an underrated D tackle, and the Eagles thought, hey, well, let's get this guy. So I think that's an amazing move for the Eagles. But other than that, the Steelers did bring in Chris Wormley from the Baltimore Ravens, who – again, another guy who I feel is like kind of under the radar. No one really talks about him that much. He's a productive D tackle, and I think he's going to do well with the Steelers. I mean, how can you not when you got guys like Cameron Hayward playing next to you and Stephon Tuitt, who now becomes more of a starter with this kind of shift on the D-line. This defense as a whole kind of really, really, made a statement last year. They went from being 2 years ago kind of like, they're kind of average. You can beat them, no problem. They play zone, and you just chuck it. Now, they look so tenacious on the pass rush with Bud Dupree, who is in the final. He is tagged, so he could be a free agent after this season. T.J. Watt, an absolute nemesis coming after your quarterback. He just makes plays, creates turnovers. Devin Bush was a rookie last year. Came on really strong and played miraculously as a rookie for the Steelers. So watch out for him. Vince Williams, an underrated guy. Their secondary. How could you not name Minkah Fitzpatrick?
Yeah, what a great
secondary?
trade right there to get him along there.
An unbelievable trade. I mean, for the Steelers, it was like the Steelers basically stole from the Dolphins. I mean, it's really what it is. I mean, they didn't give up hardly anything for him. What was it, a second or third pick? Something like that. And almost immediately, Minkah's been cashing in, like for them, picking the ball off and whatnot. So all in all, like this defense is going to be scary. And I think, if anything, to help get Big Ben up to speed, he doesn't have to worry that much because this defense is so good.
Absolutely. So let's go right down to Joe's picks. Here we go, and Joe has the Baltimore Ravens here, number 1 here, too, Joe.
I do.
Right.
I have the Baltimore Ravens, number 1. I mean, it might not be that much of a shocker to people.
Yeah, right.
However, the Ravens do have some hurdles to overcome. I mean, their linebackers, they got 2 rookies right now penciled in to start, so maybe it might be rocky in the beginning on defense, but who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But if they can come together and really unify as a defense, I feel like they're not going to give up anything on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, just unstoppable almost so far. Cleveland, a lot of people are going to be surprised by this. I still have confidence in this team. I mean, with the talent that they have on the roster, it's hard to kind of like, yes, I know the Browns could just keep losing and all this other junk, but with the improvement on this offensive line, I really feel like that's going to be the difference maker for the Browns coming into the season. And I think they're going to do just enough to be close, possibly to be one in the division, but they're not going to be able to make it. They are going to end up being second. The Steelers, I could have easily put the Steelers ahead of the Browns, but I just, when I look at the team, it's kind of, for me, it's just kind of almost unfinished. Like the offense to me needs to be a little bit more prolific. Yes, they have Juju, but Juju is not Antonio Brown. And I feel like people kind of keep kind of playing with that as an idea, like saying, oh, well, Antonio Brown left, that's okay, we got Juju. He's going to be just as good. Juju is a really good receiver, but he's not good enough in my eyes to beat double teams. We've seen it last year, how he was kind of capped by that. So if he doesn't have another, impactful receiver opposite him, he becomes more of like an above average to average receiver. So unless someone breaks out this year like a James Washington or a Chase Claypool, like we mentioned before, or Deontay Johnson, I don't feel too comfortable with them being able to put up points like crazy. And with Big Ben being off 2 years, it kind of scares me a little bit to see how he's going to show up on every Sunday. And the Bengals, rookie quarterback, does not really equal wins when you have you're throwing your rookie quarterback into the starting role right away. And even though he's the number 1 overall pick, I don't feel comfortable about that. I think he's going to go through a lot of growing pains when week 1 comes and after that. And with the defense, that's kind of like they got some holes in the linebacker spot. They got some holes here and there. I just don't think they're going to get it done in this division.
Absolutely. I hear you there. And so here's my picks, and they're exactly the same as yours. Once again, the streak is not broken here. So, and we did this at different times, too. It's not like we were like, let's work on this and together. But,
I know.
There you go. So, again, I see the Ravens to continue what they're doing. Again, I like their defense. Lamar Jackson so far has not been able to be stopped. So, until he is, again, then I'll change my mind here. The Browns, again, this was a tough one, too, because I was unsure of these last 3 teams here.
Right.
I think they could be jumbled here or there, and depending how some of these offenses perform. And that's for me. I like the Browns defense. I like the Steelers defense, and I was kind of okay with the Bengals defense, but not as much as the Browns and the Steelers. So that's why I put them ahead of that too. Again, and I'm expecting for them to make that turn. I mean, with all that talent that they have here for the Cleveland Browns,
right?
You expect one of these times. I mean, again, Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb here as a 1-2 punch.
The offensive line's improved.
David Njoku, you've got the offensive line improved there,
and those weapons at receiver.
Absolutely, the weapons are there. I mean,
not to mention, we always kind of overlook him because he's on the Browns, but David Njoku at tight end, he had a phenomenal year last year. But what's the problem, guys? Like, how do you have David Njoku at tight end, which is a mismatch for most defenses, and then Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, like, how do you have all these weapons and you're not able to rack up points?
And then they even added Austin Hooper, who was a great weapon for Matt Ryan, you know, there with the Falcons.
Now you look for double tight end
some of the things that he's done with stiff arms and everything and hurdles, doing the thing.
So Kevin, so now with Kevin Stefanski coming in, calling the plays and whatnot, and he brings in Austin Hooper on purpose, because if you remember back in Minnesota, they drafted Irv Smith Jr. and they had
Kyle Rudolph.
Yeah.
Yep.
and they have Kyle Rudolph. So they utilize double tight end sets to go out and throw the football. Now they bring in Austin Hooper with this offense. It might do pretty
Potentially. I mean, we've heard that they were going to do two tight end sets back when Hugh Jackson was the man again, and
but
we didn't see him do anything there.
No.
But yeah, hopefully now at this point with Stefanski there, they do utilize some of that again, and that opens up more opportunities for other guys.
It's right in that offense, so I can't see it any other way.
Yeah,
why would you
and the big play possibilities that you have. We saw Odell again just rip right straight through on a seam route past the defenders, and Baker Mayfield just placed it right in between them. Boom, he's gone. See ya, all the way, baby. So.
Yeah,
again, big play potential.
Who knows?
Just like you, I'm skittish on the comeback of Ben Roethlisberger, and I'm not really exactly 100% on James Conner. I know a lot of people are. I'm just not, but I'm set in my own ways, so it is what it is. And Joe Burrows, again, so far he's looking good in the training camp stuff, but again, they don't go full bore. We'll see how it goes. It is the Bengals. So again, just like with the Ravens, I'm not going to take them out of last until I see something different.
Right. They look amazing when they practice against each other.
Yeah, definitely. So there you go.
But everybody does, right?
There you go. There's my picks, too. The same thing as Joe. So there you go. So moving on now to the NFC North here, Joe. Let's start off with the Chicago Bears now.
Chicago. Here's the thing is Chicago Bears kind of got, written off last year because basically their defense fell apart. They got injury upon injury upon injury, and they just couldn't make up with all the injuries that they had. You look at Roquan Smith; he was injured last year. It was pretty much like up and down that whole defensive lineup, and they just couldn't find answers to replace a lot of those guys. And at the caliber that their starters were at, you just really can't. You kind of go with the flow and hope for the best. So offensively, different sheriff is in town. You got Nick Foles coming in. Now, I'm sorry, whatever the Bears tell you, whatever Matt Nagy tells you, I take it like a grain of salt because I know like some people were saying, oh, Mitch Trubisky's doing okay. Nick Foles is struggling with the playbook and so forth. I'm not really buying it. Nick Foles is a very smart quarterback. I'm pretty sure he could learn almost any offense like a lot of these quarterbacks in the league. And I think for Matt Nagy, maybe it's not his preference the way Nick Foles plays it or something like that, and he's just kind of making this up. But who knows? We'll have to wait and see how it all breaks down. But I'm sorry, I cannot for the life of me picture Mitch Trubisky being the starter week 1 when Nick Foles is getting paid a lot of money. You brought him in, and you didn't bring him in to sit the bench. You brought him in to compete against Mitch and probably most likely start. When you look at Nick Foles' contract that he signed, there's a stipulation in there that is on the side of Nick Foles where he can void the first 2 years of his deal at any time. So the Bears are on the hook, you know what I mean? And if he doesn't start, if he isn't happy with that, I could definitely see him just exercising that and getting the heck out of Chicago and going somewhere else. So I think with a change at quarterback, I think this offense it will pay huge dividends for them. I think Nick Foles could be the answer for Chicago. And when you got guys like Allen Robinson and Anthony Miller, who's kind of making a name for himself, Cordarrelle Patterson is an interesting name. We've seen him bounce around team to team, and he is a tremendous kick returner. But also, something that kind of goes underutilized is him as a receiver. He's a very menacing type of receiver after the catch. He's hard to bring down, very physical, and I think if they utilize him more in this offense, that it could be even more dangerous. Also, what's interesting to note is that Ted Ginn, yes, Ted Ginn is still playing football, and he is another receiver on the Chicago Bears roster here. So I'm interested to see how they acclimate him into the offense, like probably on a rotating basis, like when they want to take the top off or something, because that's really his whole career. But offensive line-wise, they were also banged up, and it looks like, this year they're back and healthy again. So there's a lot of positivity going around in Chicago. And
they have 2 kickers now, Joe. After
they
Eddie
do
Pinero's
have 2 kickers.
down.
That's great. I mean, there's only going to be one at the end of this.
Yeah, well, he said he wants to keep them through the whole season. They want to go the whole season with 2 kickers because they're not sure with COVID and everything. But I don't see it. I think, now that Matt Nagy, I think he's kind of one of those guys that is just scared now. He's been hurt by the whole kicker thing now, so now he's frantic. Remember they did that whole, tryouts and all this thing and all this, analytics, to try and figure out what's the best type of kicker here and there, all this analysis and everything. They're trapped in the kicker zone. They're freaked out, so now they're going to keep 2 kickers.
I just don't see it anyway. I don't care what he says. Like, when you have a prime spot on your roster, which is going to be a more viable option, kicker's not one of them. So it'd be like a running back or now you see David Montgomery.
That's why I'm seeing.
But here's the thing:
he's just like bitten, like he's like freaked out about it.
I don't care what he says. That's initially what he's saying right now. I just can't see you keeping 2 kickers when you have a roster spot of 55. Like, you need to keep guys for depth.
Maybe he's got a jet sweep set up for a kicker.
Now that with David Montgomery going down, if he's done for the season, it's got to be another running back. You're not keeping 2 kickers. I'm sorry. Yep. Sorry, Matt. You're going to have to come to a decision. And when we do that, like, think about what happened last year. Is they did trade. They were like scouting kickers up and down. They traded for Eddie Pinheiro from the Raiders, a rookie that the Raiders drafted. He goes over there, actually played well for them in the beginning. And then it seemed like the last 3 weeks or so, he kind of struggled big time, was missing field goals. And the Chicago Bears were like, oh, no, not again. Let's just wait and see what happens. So
freaked out, man.
But anyway, I want to touch real quick on the defense. If you remember, not only were they, the injury bug bit this side of the ball, but Akeem Hicks got injured, a Pro Bowl D tackle, just absolutely an amazing player. Khalil Mack, he did remain healthy, everybody, so he might have been beat up down the stretch, but he still played. Roquan Smith was out. Danny Trevathan, another linebacker, was out. Leonard Floyd, who everybody kind of thought, they took him in the first round, it was a few drafts ago. They were hoping he would pan out to be this like immense pass rusher for this team, kind of like Khalil Mack in a sense. Maybe not as good, but again, able to be out there and do some damage. But he failed. It was one of the biggest whiffs in the draft for Chicago. So they move on from him. And who they bring in? Robert Quinn. Robert Quinn played for the Dallas Cowboys last season and did a great job, had double-digit sacks and all this. A guy with, at his age and still able to produce. Now he's in Chicago opposite Mack. I mean, this looks like absolute chaos on paper. Like, I don't think many teams are going to be able to defend Mack and Robert Quinn. We already know that Khalil Mack gets double-teamed all the time, sometimes triple-teamed. Now what are you going to do with Robert Quinn on the other side? With this defense, you got Roquan Smith, you got Danny Trevathan. Any one of these 4 linebackers could blitz at any one time. I mean, this is going to be a daunting task for any offense to pass protect or even run block.
Right. And when you bring up the defense, they've said that Chuck Pagano is now taking in like a new philosophy. They did it a little bit last year, but they're saying now they're encompassing the whole thing. They're changing completely. And you're going to see this around the NFL. You remember 4-3 setups, 3-4 setups. That's a thing in the past. Yeah. It is changing. It is changing to the 4-2-5 nickel setup and the 3-3 stacks. And the 4-2-5 is what they're going to utilize a lot, and it better serves their team about the talent. What you said, you got Robert Quinn as your pass rusher on the other side with Khalil Mack. They're going to have their hands in the dirt most of the time. You know what I'm saying? And that leaves you now with the 2 linebackers with Danny Trevathan and Roquan Smith back there. Then you've got your nickel back on the side, and then your other corners and your safeties are solid. Dude, that's to help set up for those over-the-top plays that people are trying to air it out these days. High passing games, high flows. That's the perfect setup for that. And then when they, if they have expecting maybe if there might be a pass here too, for the nickel position, they put what it is like a heavy corner, they call it, a little thicker type of guy to fill in that spot to maybe settle out and take out the run. And again, if they think it's completely run, the 3-3 stack, we have the 3 true linebackers in the back, the 3 linemen down there. And it's a great setup.
And it's funny because they kind of played with that last season, too. Especially even when they had injuries. So they were trying to figure something out to try to make up for those losses, and it just really wasn't working. Now that they have everybody healthy, I could see that being a pretty dangerous thing.
Absolutely.
However, I don't think it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be a thing of a past where you're going to see 4-3 and 3-4 go away. That's going to be team specific. So, like, I could see the Bears because they have enough talent to do that, but a lot of teams across the NFL, they just aren't able to do that. So it is an interesting thing that they're doing.
Yeah, to try and combat some of those things, like say your Tyreek Hills or something like the way the Chiefs throw it and stuff like that. Try and end some of that type of thing, or at least have your best talent there to go against your best the best wide receivers to try and eliminate some of that.
Yeah, it's still going to be tough.
Oh yeah,
that's going to be interesting to watch.
No plan is foolproof.
And I'll say this: anytime you're trying to change something up, if they are completely changing this defense, then as good as they are on paper, they're going to go through bumps on the road, because when communication breaks down, when you're not comfortable with the defense that they've been running for years, now you're going to change everything up. That's when you got to be on point mentally. So if the communication isn't there on the football field and somebody breaks down mentally and chooses to do the wrong thing, that's when mistakes are made, and offenses are going to make you pay for that. So that is going to be interesting to watch, this defense and how well they can acclimate that into their day-to-day operations and how that works out this season. The other thing that I want to mention, too, is last year they had HaHa Clinton-Dix on this team. Before that, they had Adrian Amos and two great safeties. Why they let HaHa leave is beyond me. A guy that's still in his prime. But they do still have Pro Bowl Eddie Jackson back there. And Deion Bush comes in now and looking to kind of replace HaHa's departure. Now, they did go ahead and they bring in a guy like Deshaun Gibson to kind of soften the blow. But it's interesting because now that you lose something in that back end with HaHa Clinton-Dix, Adrian Amos, both guys that played extremely well in this defense, I wonder if this is going to hurt them at all in the back end, because Eddie Jackson can't do everything for them. So this defense looks stout nonetheless on paper. It'll be interesting to see, like Jim was mentioning, the formation changes and so forth, how often they use them. Is it going to be more of a hybrid thing? Do they just use them once in a while based on the formations that are set up? And overall, we have to really pay attention. I'm really intrigued to see who wins this quarterback job, because Jim did mention before that Chicago is kind of undecided still. They're saying that Mitch Trubisky has his faults. They're saying Nick Foles is kind of struggling a little bit. How much is that true? We'll have to wait and see. But come week one, I think before week one, I think next week they got to announce the starter. They just have to.
Well, yeah, I think overall it's just basically they're waiting on Nick Foles. Like, you feel comfortable enough, we're basically warming them up, kind of like, dude, you got to get going here because you're the guy. Because again, what they're citing now is actual visual proof that they're seeing Mitch Trubisky overthrowing players, and you're talking about guys that are super tall. You've got Jimmy Graham there. You've got the talent. That's what they're saying. We put the talent around. You've got Anthony Miller. Also,
Allen Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, and
he's the go-to guy too.
Yeah, and they also just grabbed another tight end here too. So I mean,
they have Jimmy Graham and they drafted Cole Kmet.
Cole Kmet. So I mean, you've got weapons around you, and you're missing your targets. We've seen where that's damaged other teams, like when you have Blake Bortles here with the Jacksonville Jaguars. When you have opportunities and you don't make the best out of the plays, it doesn't work. And the fact that maybe he's afraid to do it, he's been doing way too many checkdowns they've been recording here on 7-on-7 drills, let alone the 11-on-11. So Nick Foles is the guy. Like you said, he's the guy. They're just saying, warm it up, get closer with the playbook here, and then let's get rolling. Mitch Trubisky, thing of the past.
Here's the thing, too, that's interesting about the scenario is it's Mitch's last year. So, I mean, they have him in their back pocket. So if they start Foles, he's still in their back pocket. But at the end of this year, do you try to re-sign this guy? Like, do you think he's going to want to re-sign with you if he knows that he's the backup?
I think you're better off if it's just Chase Daniels as your backup. I think he's shown that he's been able to perform even in his backup role.
I know, but the thing is Mitch is young. So, I mean, Chase Daniels, he's older. Who knows how much longer he's going to play for. Yeah. Nick Foles is also older. Yeah. Who knows how much longer he's going to play for. Now, they are paying Foles a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's starter money. So, and Mitch Trubisky's not being paid that yet. They're not going to play two quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So, Mitch Trubisky, let's just say, for example, goes to free agency. Do you think anybody's going to be like they're not going to be jumping over each other or falling over each other to try to sign this guy. He's going to be most likely a backup somewhere else.
Right. Somebody's going to take him in and try him out. Number one, I think the Raiders are going to take him in and try him out. They love to take in quarterbacks and try him out. I mean, hell, they've brought in Nathan Peterman.
I don't think they will.
Yeah. I don't know. They like to. That's what I'm saying. It's a trend. I think the Saints would even try him out.
I think the Jaguars.
Why not? Jaguars, maybe.
When you have Gardner Minshew and really nobody behind him.
Nobody behind there, but, I mean, even you have nobody behind Russell Wilson really either, too, for depth, but you could grab him there, but I don't know if that would work. Maybe they would, though, too. You never know with coaches like that. So I think he's definitely going to have people check him out, see how he's doing. I don't think for starter, but they could see if maybe they can. I think some of these coaches like to see if, like, maybe this coach didn't unlock the talent. I want to see what this guy's
exactly
built
what
on
it is.
And see if I can turn him into something here. You know what I'm saying?
Yep,
so,
exactly.
Exactly. So I think he's definitely going to get a look, and we'll see what his future holds. I guess
you guys didn't teach him right.
Yeah.
We got the answer.
All right, so let's talk about the Detroit Lions now too. A team where I think they started off hot. I think they were a good up and coming team. I think the Patriot way has started to kind of settle in there. They've got now more Patriots there to instill that Patriot way. You got Jamie Collins up in here, a bunch of other ones. Trey Flowers here on the defense. So the defense is showing signs here, too. You still have Danny Amendola there, too, on the offense. And still the same weapons that have been there, too. Kenny Galladay, like you mentioned earlier on. Marvin Jones still there. They did
Duron Harmon. It's like half the team is
same guys. They're there, too. But, yes, the Duron Harmon, the former Patriots, coming in here to instill the Patriot way here in order. I think the key position here is Matthew Stafford's health. Everybody knows that. He's got to stay healthy because once he went down, the team flip-flopped, basically. You're scrambling around, didn't know what your identity was, couldn't get the running game going. Kerryon Johnson needs to step up here. I like the fact that they drafted DeAndre Swift here in the second round. That is a nice 1-2 punch they could do here, too. So you'll see a lot of Swift, I think, this year. And hopefully, depending on health, this team can take a step forward, but it's a big question mark. We haven't seen it so far, and this is the last year that this team has together, basically.
The Lions, they're just like the Chargers. They just can't stay healthy no matter what it is. Offensive linemen fall like flies. They still have yet to have a offensive lineman last like all season long and be healthy enough to block and everything. That's why Stafford just gets beat up left and right. And then to have just receivers like Marvin Jones and Kenny Galladay, that's a nice 1-2 punch. But after that, you got really nobody. So there's no real – you got Danny Amendola. I mean, yeah, sure. But Amendola is another guy.
Again,
always hurt.
Always hurt, long in the tooth now.
Just not producing because of injury. I mean, I feel like when Amendola is healthy, Matt Stafford does trust him. He gets him the football, and he does his thing underneath. But – there's no question he'll probably be injured before midseason again. And then in terms of running backs, that's great. They got another really good, potentially a running back that can come in and kind of split time with Kerryon Johnson. That's good, but as far as overall, like you need to utilize all your weapons. So in the tight end, I'm begging you, Detroit, with tight ends, you drafted T.J. Hawkinson in the first round. You didn't really use him a whole heck of a lot. Why did you draft a tight end in the first round if you're not using him? They bring in Jesse James from Pittsburgh. Now you got a nice 1-2 punch with tight ends. Utilize your damn tight ends. Throw it to them. It's unbelievable.
Well, it's tough, too, even when you see, though, what they had to deal with last year. I mean, they had Blau in there as their starter for most of the season.
Did okay.
He did okay at times. Again, there was a time where this team was, I think, toe-to-toe with the Chiefs at one point, and then just folded. And then the last 5 to 6 games, I think they just totally checked out.
Yeah, I mean, why
just done.
Why are you going to keep playing? It's for nothing now.
I think they're a tough team here and there. I mean, again, with average talent, I think they're an overall average team.
I think average offense, but actually a sneaky defense. So, I mean, we make jokes about, like, a lot of Patriots on this team and everything. Like Danny Shelton, like they don't have Ashawn Robinson anymore at D tackle. He left in free agency. They replaced him with Danny Shelton, a guy similar to him, a little bit bigger, more stout. We'll have to wait and see because he's kind of bounced around to a couple teams now. Can he be the answer for them in the middle? Also, you got Romeo Aquara. He's kind of a defensive end that is actually okay at pass rush. We saw him with the Giants and kind of like in preseason games, like who's this guy? Like he's making some plays here and there. So maybe he could be that answer for them consistently on one side, and Trey Flowers on the other. He's just an animal, but he needs help. So maybe Aquara can kind of alleviate some of the pressure that he's getting when he's getting blocked. Jamie Collins ends up back with Matt Patricia. And it's kind of humorous to see all these New England players end up coming in, and not only just coming in and being signed, but they're starting right away over the other guys that they had there. Yeah. So that there was plenty of holes to fill. Collins comes in, fills in one of them. Jared Davis has had so far a pretty good career at middle linebacker for them. You look at Christian Jones, which is an interesting signing from Chicago. He was a backup there. Still has not to this day in his career been giving a starting job. It looks like now he will be. So we'll have to wait and see what he can do. And when they drafted Jeff Okudah, who's supposed to be the number one corner coming out, will he be? He's going to be tested often this season. And
absolutely.
And can he deliver? So you got picked in the first round high. You definitely going to come with it and take over some games. Damon Herman, who is a strong safety, he comes over from New England. You got to wonder, like, he didn't really pan out in New England. Like, is he going to all of a sudden be the answer at safety? Not really sure about that, but I do like Tracy Walker back there. I think a guy who has so far proven himself and looks to kind of maintain that role going forward.
Yeah, and you talk about Jeff Okudah. Yeah, that was a great pick there where they were positioned here with the draft. They did move on from Darius Slay. That was the big news. He was unhappy. Boom, he's gone. See ya. They happened to fall in I think it was the fourth position, or so. They were there. Get him in there. But like you said, he's going to be tested. He's got the likes of, he's probably going to be put on Devontae Adams, things like that in this division. You got Adam Thielen and maybe Jefferson, who he's going to be on there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
and
he's
then
going to see talent.
They also brought in the Desmond Trufant from the Atlanta Falcons. That's interesting because he's another guy that just can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as he's been with Atlanta, it seems like every single season he's hurt at least like half the season. So how long can he last? And he's not young anymore, so he's getting up there. Is he going to be able to sustain health this season with all these other Lions, or is he just going to be another statistic with Detroit?
Right, and you want to talk about staying healthy, and former Detroit Lions, Ziggy Ansah's still out there in the free agency, and I've heard murmurs that even that the Seattle Seahawks are considering bringing him in.
They have to. You seen their D-line?
Yeah, I know. But
they got nobody.
Again, when the guys are there, they're considering, and it's funny how some people have even said, do you think Earl Thomas now and Pete Carroll are going to bury the hatchet and maybe come back there and go back to Seattle, and help that defense out?
Not after they got Jamal Adams.
I don't think so. Yeah, honestly, it'd be funny to see those guys together somehow. But after the middle finger and everything else, I think that is all over.
That bridge has been
Honeymoon's
burned.
over. So, all right, so let's move on now to the Green Bay Packers and Devontae Adams here, and Aaron Rodgers, who you had left out of the top 10 in the fantasy. If you guys haven't seen that earlier on, you guys can scroll back later on and check it out, or check it out tomorrow again. Joe did his top 10 fantasy quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers, so check that out. So the wide receivers here for the Green Bay Packers, again, you had scrutinized a bit too, said they didn't really make a whole lot of difference here. They have some of the familiar faces there.
Right.
But these guys have not been able to stay healthy and really take that step forward. We saw, was it Quemius St. Brown? Yeah, he had opportunities to probably do
last
something.
Year, yep.
You had Valdez Gantling, I think.
Marcus Valdez-Scantling.
Yep, he was there too, and we're waiting for him because you saw flashes of things.
You did.
Do it up.
Yep.
And here, lo and behold, Lazard we saw him sneakily move back from maybe the third depth position
and just kind of took over.
And took kind of over here again. That's their 1-2 punch. It looks like there. Did they bring in Perriman? Who did else? I thought they brought in another wide receiver, but I could be wrong.
Oh,
but,
yeah. I don't know if he's healthy yet.
Yeah.
But I believe they brought in Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, let me see. Look at it quick if I can here. I thought they brought in another one. But either way, a lot of the same stuff here for them.
They did. I'm trying to remember. He was from the Carolina Panthers at first. Then he went to
I don't see him. I don't see him even on there anymore for the depth chart, so he must have just dropped off. But like you said, even tight end position, they move on from Jimmy Graham, who was kind of a lackluster performance there with Green Bay as it is. Funchess, that's what it was. You're right. And Mercedes Lewis. It's like, wow. Like, okay, that's really an improvement. You're not helping me out there, too. And what you saw last year was, too, Aaron Rodgers kind of going with the flow of the way things are. We were looking at how it was going to go with Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur's new offense want to take less audibles,
and I just
want
to
control
say,
from
I just
Aaron
want to say something real quick. So this is the perfect example, right? So reporters all last offseason were saying how Aaron Rodgers really didn't buy into the offense, really didn't like it. There was going to be some friction between the coach and him. Things weren't going to pan out. Then we watched in the beginning of the season how fluid it was. You didn't notice any kind of disagreements on the sideline and everything. They were talking to each other, and they were talking. They weren't arguing. You could just see they were talking, oh, this guy, that guy, should have done this, should have done that. So you see that we have to be careful with who we listen to when they're being reported. You know what I mean? And now that we've seen it, hindsight's 2020. Now we're like, oh yeah, well we kind of figured out that maybe this was going to be okay. So
I still think Aaron Rodgers in a sense is the alpha male in that whole thing. But I've seen him also kind of bark at the defense a bit last year too. So. I mean,
he has to be.
Yeah,
he's the captain. He's the guy. In
the fact that we got to take in consideration too, because he knew he wasn't happy when they when they grabbed Love here, right? Jordan Love here in the first round.
Why?
They moved up to grab him, so that's definitely got to
Why?
send flags. Like, yo, LaFleur, I thought we were good, bro. What happened?
Listen. I get what they're doing, and they did this before when they took Aaron Rodgers when they had Brett Favre. They were planning for the future. They were going to groom Rodgers to be the successor, and it worked out well. That doesn't mean it's going to work out again just because a guy like Jordan Love was slipping in the first round, and you had major needs at helping Rodgers. Get him another receiver that could come in and make an impact.
And it was there. There was receivers there.
They could have traded it. If they traded ahead, I mean, it would have took more, but if you were going to trade back into the first round, should have traded in front of the Cowboys. Should have traded for that 16th pick and took C.D. Lamb. How impactful would that have been for them potentially? Yeah. You take C.D. Lamb, you put C.D. Lamb with Devontae Adams and Alan Lazard. Now you're looking like something. But they didn't even go that route. And they didn't go for it. Justin Jefferson was down lower.
Yeah.
You could have traded back in and took Justin Jefferson.
It really didn't make a lot of sense.
None. I was absolutely shocked when that happened. When I saw Green Bay traded him, I'm like, oh, they're going to take a receiver. They're going to take a receiver. And select Jordan Love. What? Why?
You're like, what are you doing?
Why would you? So you're absolutely right. I mean, how could Rodgers not be pissed off in that moment? Because not only did you not help the team. Yes, okay, let's fast forward this whole thing and say, oh, Jordan Love ends up being the successor. He's not as good, but he's a good quarterback at first to take over the job. Fine and dandy. However, when Rodgers was he's under contract, for long term still. So why aren't you helping the team? Not planning for the future, like saying, oh, well, guess what? How much of an impact is Jordan Love going to make this year? None. Unless Rodgers gets hurt. That's really the and even
like that what they're playing.
Even if Rodgers got hurt, Jordan Love is a rookie.
Yeah.
He's not going to come in and play like Rodgers.
Right.
So you're really not helping the team right now. What you should have done is if you wanted to trade in, get a receiver, one of the better ones that kind of were kind of laying around there, like a Justin Jefferson. Maybe even if they like Jalen Reagor that the Eagles took, maybe they could have took him. Something to help Rodgers and the offense out. No, they didn't do that, and they didn't do it in the second round either. Stupid idiot. This defense, this team in the second round, this draft is what I meant to say. This draft, in terms of receiving talent, was through the roof. They said in the first 3 rounds, you could technically get a second or first round value. And in the second round, what'd you think? It's got to be receiver. What'd they take? Another running back? I'm sorry, but Green Bay as a franchise, we've always known this organization as being great at drafting, great at picking the right player at the right position all the time. And this draft that I just witnessed, I'm not buying it. I think you didn't get a receiver in the first round. You didn't get a receiver in the second round. And you got basically you got a backup running back right now and a backup quarterback right now. Is that going to impact your team this season? Heck no.
Yeah, it's like they're already drafted for the future already.
Right.
That makes you say, like, they're already hitting the reset button. A team that had 11 wins, I think, last year, 11, 12 wins, that surprised me because I wasn't sure what was going to happen with this offense.
Right.
Matt LaFleur, that hasn't shown any type of positivity here for his offense. We saw him back in Tennessee, and they were the worst scoring offense in the whole NFL.
Didn't run.
And couldn't get anything going.
That's the funny
and that's
part,
what I mean.
isn't it?
You had Derrick Henry there, and you didn't utilize him at all.
I know.
You know, he ran your Wildcat package. That's it.
But
That's
comes
your
to
freaking great
Matt
brilliance.
LaFleur comes to Green Bay, and then because he's like, oh, I got Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams, we're running the ball.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Where's the logic there?
But the problem is, too, is when it came down to crunch time, their offense looked fine, and they helped out. Their defense looked good for start, then kind of settled out, and then the offense took the show.
I feel like
But
their
then
defense got better towards the end of the season.
And then in the playoffs, when the playoffs hit, it just seemed like they were like, you know how teams, like you play a team that kind of like even say basketball or something like that. They're flashy. They've got the crazy passes over here and this and this. But once you figure out that that's what they're flashy going to do, and you're like, oh, he's going to back pass it here and there, they don't have a lot of, depth to themselves. They don't have a lot of, depth. I guess I don't know what a better word is, but that's what it kind of seemed like. Oh, let's try this cold play, this schematic play, and then it wasn't generating any offense, and then it seemed like they kind of neglected Aaron Jones in the playoffs and didn't really get anything going. Couldn't get that thing going, the offense going to where they needed to be to show that they're a real true contender. See, I got knocked out first.
I think with the Green Bay Packers offense was the injuries that happened. I mean, Aaron Rodgers was banged up at the time. He had foot issues. The offensive line was like, they were missing like 2 starters in the playoffs, and they really couldn't find an answer for that. So when you have a weaker offensive line, a quarterback who isn't completely healthy, and a lack of receiving options, it doesn't matter how often you use Aaron Jones. It doesn't matter how often you throw the ball to Aaron Jones. It can't just be one guy or Devontae Adams. It's got to be an all-around better roster for receiving talent for Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers offense to thrive. And that's really down the stretch, I feel like what was really hurting them. Defensively, they are stout. They are a young team. They are up and coming. However, they did kind of lose a couple of linebackers to the Giants of all teams.
They did,
and
which I was excited about.
I feel like that's going to hurt them a little bit, but they did replace them with guys like Oren Burks, who was like kind of like a backup. Now he looks to take a more prominent role. Christian Kirksey comes over from the Cleveland Browns, got cut, was in free agency, had several teams interested in him. Packers land him, and good thing they did because there wasn't a whole lot in terms of linebacking free agents unless you wanted to spend big money. So they end up going ahead and get Christian Kirksey. You look at Preston Smith on the left outside linebacker, and on the right outside linebacker is Darius Smith. Those two guys are killing it in pass rush.
Yeah, absolutely.
They are creating havoc on teams. So they like to use that 3-4 scheme like the Bears did last season. And you also got to give it up for Kenny Clark. I mean, he's really developed and proven himself as a D tackle. He is a menacing guy. Ever since he was drafted, even his rookie year, he's very productive. So watch out for the D line, the linebacking core that they have assembled, and even in the secondary. This is scary. I can't even pronounce his first name. I don't know. Is it Jari? Is it Jerry? Jari Alexander at the cornerback position. He was a first-round pick. And in the second round in 2017, they took a guy, Kevin King. Those two guys are panning out and doing amazing. So isn't first-round pick in 2019 is Darnell Savage, who was more of a underrated safety coming into the draft, and they said he had first-round talent, but with his major injury slid. Packers had no doubts about him. They took him in the first round, and also Adrian Amos is in the back end.
Yep.
I mean, watch out for Green Bay's defense. I think they got better down the stretch last year. They're going to be even better this season.
There you go. So, I mean, I agree with all what you said so far, too, as well. Again, are we going to see a lot of what we saw last year here? Are they going to take a step forward? We'll see moving forward with the season as it goes. And lastly, now the Minnesota Vikings here. They've kind of had the opportunities to get this team to the Super Bowl, and it's kind of funny again. Last time they were in like the real championship game. I don't think did they make it a championship? Yeah, they did. Well, last time, all right, so they were right there with Case Keenum, knocking on the door with Case Keenum. Since they've gotten Kirk Cousins in there, they've been close again, but not really sealing the deal like they kind of paid him to do. They've kind of restructured his contract a little bit here too to try and help it out a little bit. But they've got him for like another 2 years basically. Then it drops off the face of the earth. Then they got to definitely hit the reset button with the way the personnel that they have here too. The wheels are going to come unhinged pretty soon. So they basically on a timeline here. You saw them move on from Stephon Diggs in a great trade. I think that was a great move by them, and I think it was a winning on both sides with the Bills. The Bills finally got that star wide receiver they haven't had, I'd say, since Andre Reed even. You know what I mean? Going back that far. You know what I'm saying? They finally got a threat that
it's
Josh
been that
Allen
long since they've had a real good receiver.
Yeah, right? And so but the Vikings here, now they're cashing in and saying Adam Thielen's definitely going to be our guy here. They go in and draft Jefferson, too, on the side of them, and they have great tight ends there as well. They're looking to see if Dalvin Cook can keep the ball rolling, too, stay healthy and all together and make another run here while they can, Joe.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to look at here is their offensive line needed to get a little bit better. They drafted a guy by the name of Ezra Cleveland, and I think that he definitely has the potential to win the job over Riley Reif, who's at left tackle. If not left tackle, he could take over for right tackle if need be. He's a very versatile lineman, so I feel like in the second round where they took him, he could develop pretty quickly and take over one of those starting spots along the offensive line. Watch for him. Even though they added some other free agents like Dakota Dozier from the Jets at guard and Garrett Bradbury, who they took in the first round, he is supposed to be the answer at center for them. But here's what I'm going to say for the Vikings going forward is I already think it's time to hit the button to rebuild. And the reason why I say that is because you're starting to notice some holes in the team's roster. You saw this year that they had to, obviously with trading Diggs away, they had to bring in another receiver. They brought in Justin Jefferson, who I mentioned earlier. I think the world of this kid. I think he can develop into a real big-time starter for the Vikings, along with Adam Thielen. How soon? We have to wait and see. Another receiver to watch out for is B.C. Johnson. He's kind of an underrated guy. We saw glimpses of him last season. I want to wait and see how well he can develop into this kind of offense and become more of a predominant player. They did add Tajay Sharp, which is an interesting signing. I know it's kind of like just a depth signing, and there's not too much to look into it, but nonetheless, you can see after the rookie and Adam Thielen, they have B.C. Johnson, but after that, it's like kind of up in the air in terms of weaponry. They do, like Jim was saying, they do have two good tight ends, Kyle Rudolph and Irv Smith Jr., so watch out for them to be a little bit more utilized again this season. Dalvin Cook, the biggest question that we have about Dalvin Cook, me and Jim both, is injuries. He's got to stay healthy. I know he's looking for a new deal this year, and the only way you're going to get the new mega deal that he is craving for is if you perform this season, which I know you can, but the biggest thing is injuries. You got to stay healthy. If he does not stay healthy this year, I could definitely see the Vikings either trying to trade him to get something for him or just, They got to move on from him because they did draft a guy in the 3rd round in 2019, Alexander Madison, who looks really good in camp, who looks like he could supplant Dalvin Cook have they decided to move on from him. So they do have a backup, in terms of a new starter possibly right there. And then on defense, this is the biggest problem for me. Defense, it looks like this is where they have to like majorly rebuild. They're losing too much talent on this side of the ball. They still have Anthony Barr. They still have Eric Kendricks. That's all well and good. But when you got a guy, Eric Wilson, who's slated to start at weak side linebacker, he's not a proven commodity. So you have a hole there. You have 2 new corners. One's a rookie you just drafted in Jeff Gladney, and the other one is Mike Hughes, who you drafted back in, was it 2018? 20? Yeah. Or no.
2018.
2018, yeah. So Mike Hughes is unproven. Now, he played some last year with kind of up and down, flashes. Now you're bringing in a rookie in Jeff Gladney who looks the part, but again, we got to see the evidence on the field. So 2 guys that are young in their career, can they produce? That's a big question mark. On the back end, there's no question. You got Harrison Smith, you got Anthony Harris back for another season. Those 2 guys are going to lock it down in the back end. But there's more holes. There's like 3 holes just in the linebacker and secondary. Those 2 corners got to really pan out right away. And then what are the Vikings used to? Pass rush, pressure. Guess who's not there anymore? Sheldon Richardson's not there anymore. Everson Griffin, they decided to move on from him. He's not there anymore. The only real true pass rusher they have right now is Denzel Hunter. After that, you got guys like Jaleel Johnson playing tackle, Shamar Stephen. You know these guys? I don't. I mean, these guys are these guys are put in right now as starters, and I don't feel like their D-line is going to do much, which in turn is going to give offenses more time to get rid of the football, to open up holes for the running back. So that to me scares me a little bit, is their D-line. And because of that, I feel like the Vikings surprisingly might struggle.
All right, yeah. I mean, I can hear you on that sense, too, as well. We've kind of covered all that there. So let's go right down to our picks here. Let's start off with Joe's again, and he has the Chicago Bears now with Nick Foles here at the top. Then the Packers, and then the Minnesota Vikings at 3rd, and Detroit Lions still in the bottom of the basement. Joe, what do you got to say here? The Bears here up at the top. You really love their defense, I'm sure, but you think now Nick Foles, Saint Nick, can help propel them now up a notch here and take the division.
I do, and as much skepticism there is about Nick Foles obtaining the playbook or executing some of the plays and that thing, I think all that's going to be ironed out. Maybe not by week 1, but maybe, as you play like a couple more games, like maybe by week 3, week 4, then you're going to see Chicago's offense kind of like take on a new presence and deliver and rack up some points and mix it up. Now, the big question mark is right now for their offense is David Montgomery. Is he going to be healthy enough to play in week 1? Is he majorly injured? What does that mean for Chicago's running game? So that changes their whole aspect there. If Montgomery can't go and it's on Tariq Cohen, we've seen him kind of take over the starting role when Montgomery got hurt last time, and it was kind of a little off. He could do the job, but nobody was really, worried about it. They played a little bit more aggressive defense, and they didn't take into account, that. Obviously, Mitch Trubisky at the time is a mobile guy. Tariq Cohen's a really fast guy, but because of all the pressure up front, they really couldn't get out in the open field. If that happens again, and Tariq Cohen is going to have to be relied upon along with the other backs that they have, it might change the whole outlook of this offense, where it's going to rely heavily on Foles to throw the ball a lot. Then they become one-dimensional. But other than that, their defense is rock solid. They're all healthy again. I'm really, if you're in this division, the Bears' defense has got to be intimidating for you. So we've seen a battle between Green Bay and Chicago when they have their defenses that are healthy. So that's going to be fun to watch as those games. And that brings me to the second place team is Green Bay. As much as I'm disappointed in the organization for not adding more talent for Aaron Rodgers to throw to, or even upgrading maybe some of the offensive linemen, or just just plain and simple, like
more like the mistakes in the draft.
Yeah, it's really basically what it comes down to. Not adding, even in free agency, like even if they added somebody right now, just to say, hey, we're going to try this, we're going to try this guy, to at least show that you're trying to help out your starting quarterback. I still think this team is going to be one of those top teams in this division. Their defense, I really do like a lot. I think they're going to be very, very difficult to deal with. More well-rounded than the Vikings are. They have too many holes. And all in all, Green Bay's they are definitely going to be fighting for that division. And then Minnesota, like I said before, we just talked about it. I just feel like they have more holes than they ever have on defense, and some unproven commodities on that side of the ball that they may struggle on defense a little bit more than we're used to. And offensively, without Diggs being there, a veteran, you got a rookie coming in, they're saying that it's not a slam dunk that Justin Jefferson is going to start opposite Thielen. So if that's the case and he's still trying to learn and everything, I feel like that's going to stunt the growth of this offense. And in turn, that's why I have him at the third spot. And then nonetheless, Detroit, I do love Matt Stafford. I love when they are hitting on all cylinders. They are a dangerous offense because of Stafford's play. However, and yeah, it's great that they drafted DeAndre Swift and they have Kerryon Johnson to kind of, tag team with each other. But I just don't think that they're going to be able to last throughout the season. They still have yet to prove that to me. If they do, if they can, beat the injury bug and remain healthy, then maybe they end up, getting to that third spot at least. So, but we'll have to wait and see how the season unfolds.
Absolutely, Eric. And here's my picks here. I'm going to go with the Minnesota Vikings to take the division, then Green Bay, and then Chicago and Detroit. So I flip-flop Minnesota and Chicago. I have a little more faith in Minnesota, again, just because they've been in this situation before. They've been able to make it to the playoffs with Kirk Cousins, Adam Thielen. They still have some other talent together as a nucleus. Dalvin Cook, they can rely on him heavily. The Green Bay Packers, again, I liked what I saw a little bit last year. Their defense really, really great. I thought their offense was up and down. If they do get into the playoffs here, move out of that first round and show what they can do against tougher teams. I would like to see that moving forward here. And Chicago's Nick Foles as a starter in any other team than Philadelphia hasn't really been that great. So I'm not really exactly sold. It's better than Mitch Trubisky, but I'm more of the record hasn't shown me. So, and like you said with the Detroit Lions, I really love Matthew Stafford too. You'll see in his tenure that he's been a starter in the NFL. He is matched up there with some of the NFL greats in yardage and with that amount of play time and records like that. Exactly.
Milestones.
Hidden. That's why a lot of people maybe didn't think about it when he got the contract that he did, that he deserved it just because of the injuries. But when he's out there, he is lights out. Hasn't really had a running game. So far, they've utilized the short passing game to create runs.
Well, now they will.
Now, hopefully, you keep saying it until we're beaten to death. Hopefully, this time they will, and maybe they utilize the tight ends. But until then, again, not sure. Will they be able to stay healthy? I don't know. But I see them taking the bottom of the barrel, and the owner had already said it's put out or shut out, and she had actually stepped down. Now her daughter is taking the place here to run the team, and I think she's even a little more strict and saying basically, if you guys can't get your stuff together and do anything, you're out. And I think it's going to be a whole new coaching setup here after this season. So that's it for them, moving forward.
One other thing I want to mention too is we mentioned the Cleveland Browns and how they have a new shot caller there in Kevin Stefanski. Well, Kevin came from the Minnesota Vikings, and their offense in Minnesota is going to be different. So another thing that I'm kind of in questioning here is, are they going to be as run heavy as they were? Utilize Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison. So that's going to be interesting to watch as well.
Again, if you look at Gary Kubiak, I mean, he has been, I think, better as an offensive coordinator than he has as a
head coach.
Coach
for sure.
So I think that's the one reason why I think he kind of came back with this type of sense here, too. He's done it before with the Broncos, and now his health, I think, is in a better position here to where he could possibly do it. But it's a risk, especially now with COVID, though.
I mean, here's the thing is Gary Kubiak, as a Raiders fan, I despise the man because he was on the Broncos his whole career. But I do feel for him, and I almost I'm apprehensive, like, should he be coaching? Because it's tremendous stress that he has to deal with, and isn't that something you want to avoid, at this point in his career and with his health issues? So I hope I wish him all the best. I hope he stays healthy. And Gary Kubiak is a nice person to fill in that role for Minnesota. And Gary Kubiak is known for heavy running, actually. So maybe it works out there, but
perhaps
it will be different in terms of the passing game.
And like you said, maybe this, again, with that hiring, that kind of shows you we've got this small window we're trying to make it in.
Oh, they know it.
It's over. It's over.
They know
he
it.
ain't going to be sticking around for a long time to be their OC. So that's it for us. We really appreciate you guys joining us throughout the night and throughout this episode.
If you lasted this long.
It was a powerful, long night full of fantasy stuff. So we have a whole other thing of fantasy going through there. You guys are going to be drafting this weekend, probably getting your teams going together. Good luck with that. If you guys have any questions, hit us up here on Football in the Know.
Definitely.
Twitter, FB_know.
Yep. And also, Don't be shy. Go ahead and comment. We really appreciate Swervo Gaming. He's been lively in the comment section. Greg Schreiner hit us up late in the show. You guys are amazing. Thanks for showing up to the show.
Both big
thanks for being a know-it-all. Yep. And yes, I have 2 drafts coming this weekend, and then I have 2 more drafts the following weekend, Labor Day weekend. Let's go.
All right, that's it for us. We will see you guys next week.